Hey everybody, welcome back to another week here at the Young Turks. Almost said damage report. I'm here.
What's that?
It's this thing.
It's like a webinar.
That sounds more dignified than it usually ends up being. Nando, welcome back. Francesca, great to have you here.
Good to be here.
I've heard rumors, by the way, later in the week, Cenk Uygur's gonna be around. That's gonna be a treat.
Who's he?
Also, never heard of
Don't know
him or that. I'm not really sure.
Probably
Where
hosts
am
that
I?
damage
What
thing.
is it, Cenk?
Yeah. Now look, I want to give you an idea of what you can expect. First of all, in the second hour, Brett and Jason Carter are going to be here, so that should be a lot of fun too. This hour, we do have some news, and then we also have a lot of. It's Mike Bloomberg. I mean, because it turns out he talked a lot over the past few years, and it was almost always a bad choice.
Yes, he has talked a lot.
Oh, I thought it was because we all got checks over the weekend. Did you guys not?
I'm just,
Not supposed to announce the endorsement yet. It's supposed to be Super Monday.
Oh,
when we
right.
announce it. But anyway, we're gonna go over some of what Bloomberg has been saying. Also, near the end of the hour, I had something that I wanted to talk about, and it involves some of what I've seen, especially in Meet the Press, of sort of like Dem primary electoral math that I think is kind of ridiculous. So we're gonna address that near the end.
Yeah.
But anyway, why don't we start off with something very serious, and then we can have fun with Mike Bloomberg and all of that. So down at the border, Donald Trump's war against any form of immigration continues. In this case, a new tactic, more underhanded than I could imagine, maybe even worse than the caging when it comes to migrant children, the way they've been treated during their mandated therapy sessions. So to bolster its policy of stepped up enforcement, the Trump administration is requiring that notes taken during mandatory therapy sessions with immigrant children be passed on to ICE, which can then use those reports against minors in court. So like if you've ever been to a therapist, so I've been to a therapist, they take all those notes, presumably, they're not drawing or anything. All of that then goes to the people who are trying to build a case to send you out of the country. So any stories you tell about the time before you migrated, anything that happened to you while you were coming to America, any dreams you've had, worries or fears, any of this sort of stuff will be used by ICE officers to justify continual detainment or possibly even sending you out of the country. Now we're gonna have examples of how this is played out, but I wanted your initial reactions to this tactic because I hadn't heard about them doing this before.
When you talk about the Trump administration and sort of the looming threat of fascism, like I think a lot of the times that's semi-overblown, except for in the case of ICE and its activities in the last 4 years. Like this is just so textbook fascisty, I would say. It's absolutely horrifying that they would just completely suspend any sort of ideas of habeas corpus, of due process, of anything that is just like the cruelty of this is just so unbelievable. Like the extent to which they went to deport this poor guy in the example in the article is it's just mind-boggling. You know that they could use your own therapy sessions, which are obligatory against you. You know, like self-incrimination, all the stuff that we claim to care about in this country just goes completely out the window when we're talking about an other, which in this case, immigrants, which is just fascism 101. I mean, and it makes me worried that say like there was a new administration, say there was a Bernie Sanders administration, like would ICE obey orders, or are they just have they just been so radicalized and rogue that they would go completely, brown shirts and out of control? Like it's honestly terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, maybe that's a war we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the specifics of this case are not actually all that specific, meaning the kind of terror that this child, because he just turned 18, had been facing for years. He's been in detention for 2 years already. But the kinds of things that he's been facing are the kinds of stories that we've been hearing from minors for so many years. And there is a crisis because there is gang violence, right? In, I think his country of origin is El Salvador. And so he talks about to his therapist under confidentiality, right, that he was beat by his grandmother who was an alcoholic, and then she died, and that was some relief. But then MS-13 took over his home and then forced him into selling drugs, right, which is now being used against him, even though he was forced by a gang to do so. Then his cousin was also taken by MS-13, refused to comply with MS-13, and then he was forced to brutalize his own cousin in front of the gang in order to spare his life. This child has been through so much. And in fact, a judge ruled that he had been through enough and that she was, I can't remember who it was, but they were gonna give him bond and he could leave. Well, then ICE intervened again and said, no, we're taking it for him. We're gonna re-detain you. You can't get out on bond. And I guess when it comes to immigration, this administration, part of that fascism is deterrence, right? Like, we're going to make it so horrible to immigrate to this country, whether it's by the wall, by Customs and Border Patrol, whether it's ICE, whether it's not giving you medical attention, whatever it's going to be, that therefore you will not immigrate. Well, what are you doing then? You're directly competing with who? MS-13. You are competing and saying, no, we can be worse than MS-13 and you should stay there. Essentially, you're becoming a gang. No, it is tough. So when Trump rails against how, well, it's these gangs and we're letting them into this country. No. The victims of gang violence are trying to seek asylum in this country, and your response is, no, we're going to be as bad as the gangs. And they just need to fess up to that and say, yeah, no, we're actually trying to be as bad as the gangs. And until the US and Customs and Border Patrol is kidnapping people and forcing them into drug selling, then children and people who are escaping violence will always choose to leave. They will always choose to leave unless we get our own gang violence, which we're nearing there.
Because we're talking about this, I want to jump ahead to the 5th graphic because Francesca gave you a good idea of that kid's life story, that like abused by his family, forced to abuse other parts of his family at the threat of death, was going to be obligated to murder a random person to prove his loyalty to a gang he wanted nothing to do with, so he fled. Like, you would think if America was worth anything, it could save that child. But it can't, not the current America, doesn't want to anyway. And so that life experience, which we just talked about and Kevin relayed to his therapist, here is how ICE described that. Case notes provided by ORR. Per case notes, Kevin is affiliated with MS-13 in Honduras. Kevin was allegedly involved in a plot to kill his cousin. He has gang ties, poses a danger to the community, and is a flight risk. No, he's a death risk, as in if you send him back, he will be killed by MS-13.
Yes.
But they don't care. It's not their job to care.
And what's horrifying to think is that, MS-13 is obviously a direct result of long-standing US policy, whether it was the Reagan supporting death squads in Central America, which killed several 100,000 people, which caused a huge migration crisis in the 1980s, many of whom settled in Los Angeles, then became involved in gangs and got caught up in the criminal justice system. MS-13 was created in the Los Angeles jail system. Then when they were deported, they brought that back to El Salvador. This guy is from Honduras, which it's worth remembering. The Obama administration and the Hillary Clinton-led State Department in 2009 supported a military coup in Honduras, which and has since then the United States has supported their right-wing. We call it president, but it's like a pseudo dictator, and has caused a huge social crisis in Honduras, which has led to this migration wave that we're seeing. So these are the direct results of US policy. And it's interesting because we never hear about Honduras and El Salvador. The country that we always hear about is our stated enemy, which is Nicaragua. They're not coming from Nicaragua. They're coming from our allies, which are Honduras and El Salvador. So
you mean political enemy because they have a more left-wing government?
Yes, political enemy because they're the Sandinista government, which we hate because they won the war in the 1980s. Yeah, it's just U.S. policy has its fingerprints all over this poor kid's life.
Yeah.
You know, from the moment he was born to the day he is deported back to Honduras.
Yeah.
U.S. policy has touched this kid's life in so many ways that are absolutely horrifying, and it goes to show that the Trump administration is obviously a worse iteration of what longstanding U.S. policy is, but it is just the tip of the iceberg of something that's been going on for so long in Central America.
Well, we've reached a breaking point. So like, I think when you have more authoritarian fascist tendencies, right? You're like, well, yeah, well, we should just, lock them all up and put them in cages and deport them. And then Democrats who've been willingly militarizing the border for decades now, and like you said, supporting coups in Honduras, which is absolutely, there was a spike in violence after that happened, have also been pouring tons and tons of money into the very things that are making the humanitarian crisis in these countries even worse.
Yeah.
So when you reach a breaking point, and that is sort of, I think, why a lot of people have been pushed to say, let's abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Because the reform is no longer a viable option here. And we're either faced with these two horribly militaristic, xenophobic, like abuses of human rights, or hey, let's just demilitarize. Hey, why is this body even here? It's not doing good.
Yeah, I wanna, in addition though, so if you read the full article, which is available on the Washington Post by Hannah Dreyer, they do go into depth into Kevin's story, but there are other examples because it's a widespread policy that's affecting a lot of people. I wanna give you a few ideas of how it's happened. So in Arizona, there was a 15-year-old who told a therapist he had participated in 50 murders. A number he quickly took back and said it had been a boast. It wasn't based on anything.
Obviously.
No, I think he killed 50 people.
Yeah, Jesus.
He was moved to high security detention and his asylum case remains under review. In California, a teenager who had been detained for 11 months already confided to shelter staff that he wanted to die. In an asylum hearing, the confession was read aloud as evidence he was a danger to himself and should be deported.
Yes,
What?
That makes sense. That's totally a thing that makes sense.
Yep. In Virginia, a 16-year-old told a shelter therapist that his brother was wanted for murder in El Salvador. The therapist reported that the 16-year-old himself was involved in a murder and he was transferred that same day to secure detention. So look, I'm glad that you sketched out sort of how we got here and how the policies of our government have created it. At this point, they get here, all that, we can't fix all of that.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully therapy could do something, but that itself has been turned into a tool of oppression. And then, like, how easy would it have been to save Kevin? To let Kevin in, integrate him into America? It would have cost America nothing. But we won't even do
A fraction of what it
that.
costs to hold him for 2 years in a detention center, and then
Which has got to be expensive.
Yeah, and then lawyers, all these deportation cases are hugely expensive. They involve judges and lawyers and all that stuff, and that stuff costs money.
Yeah.
And instead of you could bring him into the United States, attach a social worker who is trying to help him and integrate him into society. Put him as part of our education system. We could have saved this kid. Instead, we're probably condemning him to either instant death, or he's probably gonna have to be forced to choose, if he still has this option, to rejoin a life of gang violence.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and it's interesting because we talk about the broken criminal justice system, and it is very broken. And when it comes to people currently living in this country and citizens, but then when you talk about immigration law and courts on the border and all the it's even worse. If we can imagine how much more terrible it is. I remember hearing this one immigration judge, and she was saying, well, it's like issuing a death sentence or a life and death case. It's like ruling on a life and death case in traffic court. So you're just sort of
processing them,
processed in and out. But that is the difference between people dying, people living. And I think, when you think about a 17-year-old, 18-year-old being held in detention for multiple years, yeah, they are gonna become a risk to themselves because it will drive you crazy. And now you have someone who you were told was going to listen to you in confidence is using your own words against you. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So obviously, very sad story. We do have to take our first break. When we come back, things will get a little bit lighter, although the implications for the election with Mike Bloomberg pretty dark. But anyway, we're gonna evaluate some of his recent statements after this.
I'm here today to announce the program known as DACA is being rescinded.
We don't run our own country. We've lost our democracy, and all we have left is rage.
Where are the Democrats? I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards? We'll never fight. Primaries are everything.
Building a great wall on the southern border.
You have politicians who fearmonger about disenfranchised groups.
The first attacker came through the visa lottery.
Now they are against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
They don't want people from those countries coming here because they're fucking racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of us as Americans.
I ordered to launch precision strikes on targets.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would do if they got into power, and what do you know? They did it.
I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're gonna handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
What does this law mean? These are all just basic BS coverings.
To every politician who is taking donations from the NRA, shame on you.
They said that this was impossible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder. And at the end, we'll get our democracy back. Primary the living hell out of these Democrats, and let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it, and let's take it.
Anna, can you think of anything that's better than knowing that your money is serving your values and not working to benefit industries that you have no interest in?
Well, if my money is doing that, but I have a lot more of it, that would be better. But what you just proposed sounds really damn good.
Yeah, I can't necessarily promise what you just said, but you can get all that stuff with your values. You can also potentially have dinner with us, which I think just sounds awesome.
I mean, I have dinner with myself every night, and it's pretty damn exciting. It'd be even better if you and Cenk were included.
We can be.
And if we included someone from our audience.
We're gonna.
What?
Yeah, it's super simple. Just go to tyt.com/dinner in LA, and you can sign up for a sweepstakes to have dinner with us.
Oh yeah, this is the aspiration sweepstakes. So
it's that one.
Yeah, so there's more to it than that. What else do they have to do?
Yeah, there's more, but not much more. So you sign up for a free aspiration spend and save account, register your eligibility, and then swipe your aspiration card on daily purchases to gain entries to win a chance to fly to LA and have dinner with Cenk and you and me.
What I love the most about this whole process is after you register your eligibility, you don't have to do anything differently. So if you're like me and you just want to be lazy after work, awesome, because all you need to do to keep entering into the sweepstakes is swipe your aspiration card.
Just use it.
Yeah,
and some of you already have an aspiration account, but as a reminder, you do still have to register for the sweepstakes, and that's it.
I love it, check it out.
My name is Alexandra Jablonski, but I go by Alex. I don't know why I just said Alexandra. I got stuck with one of the hosts. I shouldn't say stuck. I work for one of the hosts for The Breakdown, which is Hassan Piker. And I also work on Mean Show a lot of the time as well. My favorite thing about TYT, I would definitely say the family unit aspect. I mean, I genuinely really like working here. Can I curse at all? No. Oh, okay.
Welcome back to the Young Turks, everybody. Before we jump back into the news, I did want to read some of your comments. I saw member comments from the architect who just said, "We are the monsters."
That sounds very ominous. Sounds like a villain in like a Bond movie.
Exactly.
He's the architect.
Just saying, we are the monsters.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are. And in the Ethernet said, President's Day treat power panel on Monday. It's unofficial, but yes.
Clever name in the Ethernet.
Exactly. Armando says on the super chat, when will Nando get his own TYT show?
Well, you know,
make it happen.
I mean, you'll have to
like Ken
assassinate.
Klippenstein says, rise and grind.
Right, rise and grind every morning.
Okay, so let's see. And then on the hashtag TYT Live, Melissa Matrice says, nothing is better for your mental health than being tossed out of your country to die.
Yeah.
You can't have mental health problems if you're dead. Think about it.
That's so dark and true. Okay, with that, let's moderately lighten things up. We've got some Mike Bloomberg for you.
Yes.
I apologize to both of you. I know neither of you want to talk about this, but we're going to talk about Mike Bloomberg a bit. It would seem that Mike Bloomberg would have some issues in his past that would affect him in a Democratic primary. Stop and frisk seems like a pretty big one. His whole relationship with multiple communities that are non-white inside of New York. But he is trying to get out in front of it. Out in front by, I mean, he's got some ads which we're gonna show you. Bear in mind, he's never had to go on a debate stage. He hasn't been interviewed. There's been no communications between Mike Bloomberg and the electorate that he has not controlled through his own advertising revenue. But he does have that revenue. And so here is some ads that have to do with his record in that area. Here's the first.
When I came home from prison, my sons were in their teens. I got involved in juvenile justice. I didn't want them to go through the same thing I went through. Michael Bloomberg created the Young Men's Initiative and helping keep other young men and young women from entering into the criminal justice system. And we see it in young people being employed. We see young people being removed out the system. And that's what justice looks like for me. And I think that's what Mike Bloomberg's done for my community and throughout the city of New York.
I mean, that ad just hurts on a very fundamental level to watch.
I just hope everyone in these ads is getting well compensated. That's all I could say. Get that money, you know,
Says
like
he's a community
take
organizer.
It's fine. Like, I'm not
assuming
trying to
he
knock
knows
what
about-
he's doing. Yeah, no, listen, take the money. I'm not really mad at that, but saying that Mike Bloomberg has tried to stop young black men from entering the criminal justice system is just the most cruel thing anyone's ever claimed. Mike Bloomberg's policies are the reason many young black men entered into the criminal justice system to begin with, after being thrown up against a wall just by the color of their skin and the neighborhood they were walking in. So please spare us.
This Mike Bloomberg campaign is a hugely clarifying moment for me, and I think for a lot of people who see that a lot of the liberal elite is just straight up for sale and don't actually care about any of the things they profess to care about. Like if, the sort of Democratic Party has branded itself the party of minorities for the last 20 or 30 years. Minorities have always suspected that they take their support for granted and don't actually believe any of the things they profess to believe about being committed to anti-racism, being committed to ending, the criminal justice, heinous criminal justice system that we have. But the reality is that a huge chunk of those people don't actually care about any of that stuff, because if you see anyone supporting Mike Bloomberg, that's what that tells you. It tells you that they don't care about any of that stuff. Any of the stuff they've proposed to care about in the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very clarifying moment. And the other aspect of it is that he has so much money that he can single-handedly prop up an entire TV network with ad spending. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, that's like the bottom line of a ton of news organizations throughout the country could be single-handedly dependent on Mike Bloomberg's money, which is gonna, once again, prove like every single Chomskyite in, reading Chomsky like in their dorm smoking weed has a better understanding of the way the media works than these people who pretend that these things don't have an effect, because what you're gonna see is a bunch of networks treat Mike Bloomberg with kid gloves.
Yeah. So far, he hasn't even gotten within a mile of the gloves. So honestly, we don't know, because apparently, if you have enough money, you can buy all the ads you want, and you never have to answer to literally anyone.
Well, he owns his own cable news network. Exactly. That's a small little detail. Yeah. He has his own entire cable news network that he could just turn into like a campaign propaganda arm.
And so, in terms of the clarifying moment, it is both that he is the rejection of all of what these elites have said they care about, but also happening at the same time that you have a candidate that has the coalition they've been saying they want for literally decades. So they have to throw that to the side as they embrace Mike Bloomberg. And look, by the way, there are some people some regular people who are gonna be duped by all of these ads. He's the only person they'll have seen because he's advertising in literally 50 states simultaneously. And they will be fooled into thinking not that he has the right positions, because you can watch as many ads of his as you want. You'll never know what any of his positions are, but that he can win, which relies on you having no idea how elections actually work, because he is a disaster.
Bloomberg has 60 sexual harassment cases against him.
Yeah.
6-0. Those are all the only ones that were actually, reported. I mean, there could be many more instances of actual sexual harassment where the woman didn't have the courage to actually, file a lawsuit. So,
or felt, especially at that time, that if she did, she would lose her career and no one would listen to her.
Exactly. But look, we think of all these Democrats who were blue in the face, outraged at Trump's grab him by the blank tape, rightfully so. But if they could then turn around and support Mike Bloomberg, then I'm sorry, you cannot be mad about Trump about that kind of thing.
But he doesn't say it openly, okay? There's a difference, you know?
He's not caught on tape.
Or he wasn't caught on tape saying it openly. And when he didn't use the P word, he used the V word, and that was just respectful.
He's woke.
No, listen, Bloomberg has he has a longer record, if it is possible to have a longer record of being a racist and sexist than Trump. That's Bloomberg. Bloomberg has more of a political record. Yeah, Trump has a non-political record of being a racist and a sexist, but Bloomberg's actually enacted his racist policies. And especially, I know we might look at Black America for Mike. No, and whenever I think of anyone who's viable and who can beat Trump, I always think about how Trump will co-opt a progressive critique of that candidate to his advantage, like we saw him do with Clinton all the time. And we know that actually, other candidates like Bernie Sanders are a lot less weak on that front. But when it comes to going against Bloomberg, it's Trump is gonna not stop talking about stop and frisk. It'll be endless. And his lies about how African American unemployment is down, and his lies to the African American community, which are again just as full of nothing as Bloomberg's, but he will weaponize that.
Yeah, and I love that on cable news, there are a couple figures who you can see smoothly transition from it looks like Bernie Sanders could beat Trump, but he's never been attacked before too. Bloomberg's the guy. I think Bloomberg can totally do it, but they do that. Okay, so I'm getting from both of you that this first ad hasn't won you over.
No, but I'm open-minded.
Bloomberg's yet.
Yeah, my Venmo account, Mike Bloomberg, is at Nando Arvila. If you deposit,
there's an R?
$1 million. Yeah, because my name's Rodriguez Vila. It's very long.
You're gonna get $1.
Well, okay, I can't confirm he's gonna give you that money, but he does have a second ad, so let's take a look at that.
For hundreds of years, Americans systematically stole Black lives, Black freedom, and Black labor. And I know my story would have turned out very differently if I had been Black. So today I'm proposing a sweeping strategy to invest in Black wealth creation. The wealth gap is inextricably linked to the racial inequalities of the past. And I'm determined to make breaking that link a centerpiece of my presidency.
That is the most intellectually offensive ad I've ever seen in my life. It's inextricably linked to the inequities of the past. It is. But in some cases, it ain't that far in the past for
your administration in New York. What the Bloomberg administration in New York taught us, which by the way, he did the thing that Evo Morales was military coup for, which was extend his term limits to 3 terms.
That's right.
But we don't talk about that ever. But what the Bloomberg mayorship of New York has taught us is that a huge swath of well-to-do, middle-class, white liberals will accept a sort of soft fascism, like a light police state in their own world, as long as they are personally not affected, but they do not care about any of the underclass at all. And this is a good example of why that is, because as long as someone uses the right words, if someone says systemic racism is linked to the past or whatever, but what can be done about it? All that stuff. As long as they say the right buzzwords, they sound like a campus, speaker or something in 2020.
What about reparations?
Yeah, Bloomberg's gonna come out for reparations in 2 seconds.
Dude, honestly, come out for reparations. That's where that ad was going. It was histories of systemic racism, blah, blah, blah. reparations. Do it, Bloomberg. Come on, just come on.
He could
And you think he's gonna
personally
get
do
pushed
it.
on
he
it
can
by the
personally
media?
pay.
Yeah, he can
That would be a
personally
gesture.
pay reparations. Do you think but he will definitely get pushed on that, right? Like he'll be asked by,
You're talking about his record in this area?
Yes, he'll be asked about reparations. Remember how all the candidates about 6-10 months ago were about, are you for or against reparations? I know Bloomberg is gonna get asked about that. Here's the thing, the only difference between Mike Bloomberg and Donald Trump is that on their way from Earth to Elysium, Bloomberg will airdrop a bunch of diet soda. And that's, that's love. Thank you. We are thirsty.
Yeah. No, it's the whole thing. It has me in a very, very dark place, to be honest. Like the prospect of Bloomberg buying the Democratic nomination. Well, I don't even think he could, because he can't win outright. I genuinely don't think there is a path for him to win the 1990 delegates.
To get even a plurality, let alone a majority.
I don't think so. So the only way that he gets the nomination is through some DNC chicanery at the convention, in which case there will absolutely be a rupture in the Democratic Party. It would break the party apart. It would go the way of the Whigs in the 19th century when they couldn't pronounce themselves on the slavery issue. They're like, you know what, maybe we'll just do like a middle of the road policy on it.
It's still a long way off, but I don't want to make any promises, but there are political environments that I would have very little interest doing this job in. And I can see multiple of them potentially coming. I guess the only thing going against that is that I have no other marketable skills. So I guess we'll see you in the future.
Just join the Bloomberg campaign. Just sell
honestly,
out.
give in, join the campaign.
They could use you.
I don't know if I have enough Instagram followers for him to value my influence.
What do you guys think about him on the debate stage, though?
I think he is going to be, like I saw a movie called Crawl, and there was a scene where a person is torn apart by 5 alligators at the same time. Ooh. I'm hoping that's what it is.
Here's the one thing every single billionaire in the world has in common, which is that they surround themselves with yes men.
Yeah.
They are not used to being told that whatever it is that they're doing is not right or anything like that. And they really don't like actual pushback on any of this. Like they freak out. I mean, that's what's gonna happen on the debate stage. Like Bloomberg's gonna be surprised at the hostility coming to him from all the candidates. Because I think, obviously Bernie has his own reasons, but I think every single other candidate's gonna start attacking him. And the ones that don't are gonna be very telling. It's like
I think it's gonna be complete vindication for Bernie and his entire platform these 6 years, which has been talking about how billionaires have way too much influence in our economy and our political system. It's like a kid being like, "Mom, Dad, the boogeyman's literally under my bed." And they're like, "Oh, that's so cute." And then like the boogeyman comes in the living room like, "Hey, sup?
Here's a giant bag of money. Here's the bag with the dollar sign.
Do you guys want to work for me or what?" And then Bernie's gonna be like, "Look, right there." But I guess I feel like he should still not be allowed on the debate stage. And I know he'll have to answer for all of his policies and his BS, but I feel like if he goes ignored, there's nothing worse than being ignored. And if he goes ignored, he's just sort of this weird offshoot candidate who's buying a lot of ads and he's got people, I guess, and he'll poll a little bit, but he won't, it immediately takes him seriously, and dare I say, kind of like the way we took Trump too seriously from the beginning, later when he, became serious, but
Trump didn't spend this kind of money.
No, of course, but I feel like
and he's in a national poll today, he's in second.
Yeah.
No.
He's at 20%.
You think the debate will deflate him?
I think, well, look, the interesting thing for me will not be what the candidates do. I have a feeling of what the candidates are gonna do, but it'll be interesting to see, will the moderators just start listing his quotes the way Megyn Kelly did with Trump back in 2016? Bring up the kill it, bring up the minimum wage should never be raised, bring up the Israel should bomb Palestinian hospitals and schools. Bring
every
up the
single issue.
The NSA should read every email. Like every issue, he's got the worst imaginable position on it. Just list them. I'm gonna do that tomorrow on the damage report, by the way. The top 10 worst.
Here's a free moderator video. Just hand it, just mail it to all the moderators.
But will they do that?
No.
Okay, so look, we have a lot more to talk about. I do want to transition to another topic though, but still, Mike Bloomberg. One of the top issues in this Democratic primary, I think we had a little bit of an issue there. One of the top issues in this Democratic primary is healthcare, obviously. We wanna know where all of these candidates stand on healthcare. And we're still getting an idea with Mike Bloomberg, but a recent video's come around the internet today where he does talk about one place where he would draw a line when it comes to healthcare. Let's listen.
If you're bleeding, they'll stop the bleeding. If you need an X-ray, you're gonna have to wait. That's just, and all of these costs keep going up. Nobody wants to pay any more money. And at the rate we're going, healthcare is going to bankrupt us. So not only do we have a problem, it's going to bankrupt us. And we've got to sit here and say which things we're going to do and which things we're not. Nobody wants to do that. You know, if you show up with prostate cancer and you're 95 years old, we should say, go and enjoy, have an ice cream, lead a long life. There's no cure, and you can't do anything. If you're a young person, we should do something about it. Society's not willing to do that yet. So we're going to bankrupt us.
So, if you're old, you know, like we were talking before the show about there was the myth of the death panels, like this formal thing that you go before and they decide whether you get care or not. He's found a way around that whole thing. You don't even get the panel.
No panel. Just executive order. You die. You know, like this. By the way, what Bloomberg is saying is a totally mainstream belief amongst both the establishment of the Republican Party and the establishment of the Democratic Party. Both establishments believe that entitlements are going to bankrupt us and that they need to be cut. So it's not, the thing about Bloomberg is because he's so rich, he says the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
It's another reason why this is a hugely clarifying thing, because most, at least Democratic politicians, have the sense to not say those things out loud. They say it behind closed doors and in private.
Yes.
They don't say it out loud because they know it would just destroy their popularity with voters, because that is literally the most unpopular position in American politics, is cutting healthcare spending and cutting Social Security. But that is an absolutely mainstream view in the establishment of both parties.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, let's just listen. Let's just remember that if anyone else other than Bloomberg had said, if you get prostate cancer, c'est la vie, write it out, buddy, like absolutely disqualifying, totally disqualifying. And Bloomberg, I will hold you to that, buddy. 95, we're checking your prostate, man. Like,
I will personally check Bloomberg's prostate the day he turns 95 years old.
We're taking one for the team here. Nando's taking one for the team.
I'll do it.
He's checking Bloomberg's prostate. Do you think any billionaire billionaires want to live forever? We know that. I think though, the thing for me is that what Bloomberg's doing and what Nando you were talking about was that we talk about healthcare costs as if there's they just sort of fall on us like dewdrops in the morning. Like we don't know where they come from. They're just like, it's like the tooth fairy. We're just suddenly, blessed with tons of debt. No, healthcare costs are rising because private health insurers are making a killing off of our sickness. That's why the costs are going up, and yet we are never able to talk about reining in those costs and actually reining in those industries, whether it's the private health insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry. It's like that is the thing that Bloomberg's. Yeah, look at this.
Yeah,
look at this
that's
shirt.
what we're talking about.
No, listen, I was having a great moment, but no, please, take it off. What Bloomberg is basically saying.
Let's talk about the rectal exam again.
Let's talk about the rectal exam. What Bloomberg is saying is that he will not confront the health insurance industry. That he is too scared, he is too cowardly, and he's too in the pockets of health insurance industry, the health insurance industry or pharmaceuticals, that he's not going there. And I think we should hear that when he says those things, and we should hear that when anyone says, well, the costs are just going up. No, they're going up because someone is making them go up.
Yeah, and by the way, almost everything, like I could actually do it, but I know good people who would just start making the ads against Bloomberg because he's providing everything you possibly need. People actually do kind of hate billionaires, like they've gotten a taste of Trump. I don't think they want another one. Like imagine this guy going around saying, when you hit a certain age and you get sick, you're gonna die. You think Bloomberg is gonna die when he hits 95?
No.
Bloomberg could be 107 years old with some sort of weird degenerative uranium poisoning, and he's gonna get $20 billion worth of medical care.
Yeah.
He will always be fine. He says minimum wage should never be raised. He's gonna be fine money-wise. Like the idea that they're not running ads against him yet, and perhaps they're worried about the thing you said about like sort of legitimizing him. I would argue when he hits 20% in the national polls and he's in second, you should probably do something about it. It's insane. And by the way, the example he gave there is you hit 95 and you get prostate cancer. Do you think that's actually where he would have them draw the line? 95 and prostate cancer? No, that's gonna be a lot lower in practice. It already is in practice for most people. Even people who are lucky enough to have health insurance aren't necessarily receiving the coverage necessary when something truly disastrous happens. And that is a status quo that he is perfectly comfortable with continuing because he doesn't exist in that status quo.
Right.
He exists in a Elysium, where they get the best medical care imaginable, technologies we've never heard of before.
Exactly.
Well, the worrying thing about Bloomberg is that I think he says those things not because he's in the pocket of anyone, because he's richer than all of them. He has no monetary interest in any pharmaceutical industry or anything at all. It's deep-seated ideology, and it speaks to his natural tendency toward authoritarianism, which is what he is. He is a Republican authoritarian. I mean, he was a Republican up until 2 seconds ago, and he instituted a massively authoritarian state in New York City. So these things are deep within him. They are what he believes. They're his honest ideological commitments. If he was in the pockets of X, Y, or Z industry, I'd almost be more forgiving, because then you can get some other one to be in the pocket of whoever,
Right, but the ideology is that no one can lose money no matter what.
Right.
No matter what, people need to be able to make money, and by people I mean, my friends on my space trip.
Yeah. Okay, I want to show you one more video. We only have time for brief responses, but I think this is an interesting one. Okay, we're gonna do that after the break. We're gonna take a short one. We'll be back after this.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News. I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve, and the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer in true Weekly World News tradition? It's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
The Young Turks has entered in the Shorty Awards, and we're up for Best in News and Media, and we're up for Best Overall YouTube Presence. Now, we won this audience honor several times in the past, and you know why? It's because of you guys, and it'd be great if we can win again this year. Here's all you need to do. Just type in tyt.com/shorties and hit vote, that's it. Now, you can vote once per day, and there's an extra vote when you share it on Twitter and Facebook. The link is tyt.com/shorties.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to the first hour, everybody, with Francesco Anando and myself. Let's see, we've got some hashtag TYT lives.
Fun.
I'm the Derpy Dragon says, don't you guys know we gotta fight fire with fire? So to beat a racist, sexist, billionaire Republican, Democrats need their own racist, sexist, billionaire.
That was what Joy-Ann Reid said on MSNBC.
Yeah.
She said that exact argument.
To mock it?
No, to be like, just like, Bloomberg's a Republican.
Ironically?
No, she was dead serious. She was like, oh, Trump's a Republican. Maybe to beat a Republican, we need one. And Bloomberg's a Republican, why not him?
So why don't we run Eric Trump?
Yeah. That would be
better to beat a Trump than Trump.
That would be onto something. I would like that.
I'm not opposed.
Yeah.
Not Don Jr. though.
No,
Screw that guy.
no, but we could pick off Eric.
Yeah, let's get rid of the constitutional requirement of age. We'll run Barron. Okay, I'm not gonna get in trouble on CNN now. Okay, so Jason Pierce says, forget about it. They drummed Al Franken out of the party and he didn't have anywhere near 60 accusations. That's Republican level hypocrisy.
Good point.
Well, if he gets busy harassing people, then someday perhaps he can run for president. That's a requirement now, apparently. Okay, with that, why don't we jump right back into the thick of this? Bloomberg is a billionaire, and so it's not necessarily obvious that he understands the plight of regular working people, but he has occasionally been on video talking about different sort of workers, what their work is like. And so I want you to take a look at this. Now, he is talking about different sorts of economies, different technological levels in those economies. Here he is talking about the difference between old style agrarian economies and the technological economy of today.
Technology is reducing the ability to give them the jobs. We just more and more, if you think about it, the agrarian society lasted 3,000 years, and we could teach processes. I could teach anybody, even people in this room, so no offense intended, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. Then we had 300, you could learn that. Now comes the information economy. And the information economy is fundamentally different because it's built around replacing people with technology, and the skill sets that you have to learn are how to think and analyze. And that is a whole degree level different. You have to have a different skill set. You have to have a lot more gray matter. It's not clear the teachers can teach or the students can learn.
Okay, so
it's amazing.
There's a few things there.
It's amazing.
I want to start with what I think is like we can have a discussion about the merits of any individual part of that, but the money quote there is you have to have more gray matter, which is funny for two reasons. One, because he is still in effect saying that people that are outside of the information economy aren't as smart, and two, he seems to think that to be smarter you need more brain.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's how it actually works.
What Bloomberg said there about farming is as if I said, business is easy. All you got to do is buy low and sell high.
That's what I've heard.
That's what you're gonna do. And I promise you that Bloomberg, if he were forced to farm to live, like if he were forced to farm his own land to eat and survive, he would die. Like he would not have a single crop would grow from one of Bloomberg's farms.
Yes, as someone who, listen, I can edit a podcast, a video, I know Instagram very well. I know, pretty amazing. I can't keep succulents alive, okay? Mike Bloomberg, I think we need to start hashtag Farmer Mike. Let's see you keep just one house plant alive without your help watering it whenever it needs watering. Like, yes, farming actually takes a lot of skill and a lot of analysis and understanding about, like, I don't know, farm stuff,
Weather.
wind, weather patterns, irrigation,
Pests.
planning, testing. There is a ton of work. But listen, we all don't, just suckle glucose from stalactites while we hang upside down in our bunkers. I get that you don't eat real human food. Okay. I don't know what billionaires eat, is what I'm trying to say.
And the thing is, I know that the X is the same as Trump gets thrown around a lot, but the idea, Trump's favorite thing to say is nobody knows more about X than I do, and that statement just reeks of that to me. I don't know a lot about farming, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't either. I tried to grow tomatoes once, and I grew a massive tomato plant that never once had a tomato on it. I don't even know how that's possible. It was like a tree and there were no tomatoes. And I have YouTube and I can do Googling and all that stuff. So but importantly, I wouldn't stand here and say, it's simple, it's so easy. And here's the thing. Yes, to some extent he is trying to make an analogy or metaphor or whatever, but he's also the sort of person that supposedly is so savvy and electable, but he goes around and insults people casually, talking about how they don't have enough gray matter. And I can't wait for Trump to run that in an ad against him in the Midwest or literally wherever. It is
anywhere.
Regular people are gonna love that. The billionaires saying, you guys who dig around in the dirt, you don't have the brain matter. Whether that's actually what he intended to say or not, that is how it is going to be received.
First of all, that's 100% what he intended. I mean, the intention is very clear. And it's the deep-seated ideology of Bloomberg is a unbridled hatred and contempt for regular people. It's so obvious, it seethes from his pores. And I'm just imagining his next ad in his next ad buy in Iowa or Nebraska or something, and it's him tilling the land, He's like,
please.
Well, this is fun, just amazing. It's just, the whole thing is so depressing. I mean, seeing liberals line up behind him, it has me in a very, very deep, dark place. I don't know about
to
you
be
guys.
fair, many of them have received large amounts of money from him, either individually or
some
for
of them
their cities.
haven't though, and that's what I don't understand.
Yeah. So look, that's an interesting route to take. But look, I want to transition now to talking about Bloomberg in comparison to some other candidates, because at some point he is going to have to interact with them. And recently online, him and Bernie Sanders have been getting into it. So let's talk a little bit about that. Recently, Bernie Sanders has been quite critical of Mike Bloomberg and his obvious attempt to buy this election. And so Bernie Sanders had tweeted out, the simple truth is that Mayor Bloomberg, with all his money, will not create the kind of excitement and energy we need to defeat Donald Trump. So to that, Mike Bloomberg and his 5 million employees rapidly produced an ad. Take a look at this.
It is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
Okay, so Bernie Sanders says he wants to be civil, and I think he has a reputation as being a guy who very rarely chooses to attack anyone. It can be frustrating sometimes. But did you know that people who might or might not actually support him have been online? And remember, as we were going through that, multiple of those tweets had hashtag Yang Gang in them. Which sounds like they might be Andrew Yang supporters rather than Bernie Sanders supporters.
But the music, John, the music.
It was dramatic.
I mean, what's so funny about just using random tweets? Many things. One of them is, none of those tweets said anything about Bloomberg. And I feel like the internet's changed since Mike's entered the race. In fact, I think Mike Bloomberg is a great unifier. Because whether you're for Buttigieg or for Warren or for Sanders or for Yang, we can all come together and hate Michael Bloomberg. And that is unique. I think the internet's actually been a better place. But I also think people misunderstand what Twitter is for. Like, Twitter is just a public pillow that we scream into because we can't afford therapy. Like, that's it, you know? And to take these tweets out of context with like, what Tanky_Yankee69 tweeted on behalf of the Bernie Sanders campaign. I know it was official. It's like, man, get over it, calm down. It's so funny to see like boomer, like I watch that and I'm like, suddenly I feel 85 and I'm like, oh, Twitter is terrible. You know,
I think this ad for Mike Bloomberg is the definitive jumping of the shark moment of the Bernie bro narrative, right? Which has always been in bad faith. It's always been disingenuous. Every single candidate has supporters who say mean things online. This is 1000% true. There is zero evidence to suggest that Bernie supporters are disproportionately hostile online than other candidates. What this does is it has the effect of causing people to doubt themselves, causing supporters of Bernie Sanders to get a little bit of like, oh man, I don't know if I should go there.
Yes.
And what it reveals is that Bernie's passionate support is a source of strength for his campaign. It is not a liability the way the New York Times would tell you or the mainstream media would tell you. It is actually a great source of strength because if a candidate like Bernie Sanders who has basically zero media support, like they need some sort of independent media so that their supporters can feel confident about themselves, can feel like that what their arguments are superior arguments, that they're gonna win, all these things that they keep hearing that they're actually not. The Bernie bros online, for lack of a better term, are a massive source of strength, which is why they keep on attacking them incessantly. So don't doubt yourself, don't give an inch, not an inch to this, because it's in bad faith.
I also think, yeah, continuing with the bad faith thing, I think when we're talking about Bernie Sanders, and we're talking about Bloomberg even, like, I feel like we forget who Trump is and the kind of hate that he's stirred specifically online from white nationalists. I mean, these people, do they know about 4chan and 8chan and 32nd Chan? I don't know, like how deep does it go? But we're talking about actual white supremacy being fomented and funneled upwards through the likes of Breitbart. Like these are the trolls to be concerned about, right? And yet that falls by the wayside because someone hashtagged a snake, you know, or whatever it was. Like that's so disingenuous and so misses the mark about what we're up against. And when it comes to sort of online, you know, harassment, yeah, there is real online harassment happening, but it tends to be from far right extremists and those who are stirred and inspired by Trump.
Yeah, and I think that they're trying to make those seem like the same thing.
Yes.
But the thing is, like with Trump, yes, his fans abuse people, they harass people, they spread like all that, but I've never been focused on what Trump's supporters say online.
Right.
It's what Trump says, what Trump does. Yes, some of that is then reflected in his fans, but I don't think I've ever just shown you a whole bunch of screenshots of crazy stuff MAGA people say, because you don't need to. And I want to be very clear about this, why that ad is such a sad admission. I don't need to just show you things that Trump fans said because I can talk about what Trump has said and more importantly, what Trump has done. If they could do that with Bernie Sanders, they would just do that.
But what's
they don't want to talk about his platform because that will make him more popular.
Right.
They can't go to his statements because they're advocacy for the working class. They have to go to what they have, and that is random people that might not actually support Bernie Sanders. We've never had to do that with Donald Trump.
And it's worth reminding people that Bloomberg has 60 sexual harassment cases, one of which he told a woman who told him that he was pregnant to kill it. Okay, this is the guy we're supposed to be, that's supposed to be policing the discourse online. This guy has in real life been an absolute monster.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's like the jump to the shark moment. Anyone who takes this seriously, it's like you can just look at him and be like, you're ridiculous. You should not be taken seriously on anything else you say.
Absolutely, and obviously the ad has a great clip of Bernie Sanders, which is so funny because it's literally proving that the candidate is a far cry from any so-called supporters online. What I want to say about a lot of centrists and maybe some media figures giving Bloomberg far more of a fair shake, that's so frustrating to me is because when it comes to appealing to Republicans, oh, well, Bloomberg appeals to Republicans. Well, he was a Republican. Well, he's perfect. He gets lauded for that. Whereas Bernie Sanders, whenever he appeals to Republicans by talking about working class populism
or going on Fox News,
or going on Fox News, or how free trade agreements were terrible for working people, he gets hammered. So it's fine to be a Republican when you're supporting elitists, and it's not fine to be a Republican if you're speaking to working class people. Great, just want to make that clear.
Yep.
Yeah, I tweeted earlier today, I wish that theoretically Mike Bloomberg could still qualify for the debate stage. I don't think that's gonna happen, but I wish he would be there because I think it is way long past due that he start to be critiqued by someone who is not hosting an online news show. Like, we're doing what we can, but at some point,
Hey, don't sell yourself short. I think this show can take down Mike Bloomberg.
Well, we're gonna try.
I think this segment could take him down.
Yeah, or at the very least, present enough of a threat that he'll have to pay.
Or give him a free prostate exam.
But anyway, if we had to fill 24 hours a day, as CNN and MSNBC do, couldn't he at least pretend? He's got so many scandals. Think about the drama. You could interview the people who have accused him of sexual harassment, hour after hour of drama, and they don't care at all. But anyway, let's go to what's that?
Think of the drama. I love that being a cell.
Yeah, if you were some cynical producer, segment producer at CNN, you could do some killer content.
You would think. Yeah. Okay. So look, I want to turn to one other thing that's been bothering me, and it has to do with the current state of the Democratic primary. So let's turn to that. You might recall in the wake of New Hampshire, right after the results were pretty clear and it was clear that Bernie Sanders is going to win, you started to see things like this tweet I'm gonna show you right now. So this is from Meet the Press, data download. If you look at they're all data download. If you look at the combined percentages of the centrist candidates versus the liberal ones, the centrists perform better in both Iowa and New Hampshire. And so you see there, if you add together Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Biden, which is not a thing that happens in elections, it's higher than the liberal vote. And that's why Bernie lost in both those states. So that didn't happen. So here's the thing, the idea there, and I saw this literally the night of, they had it ready to go. They had a template ready, they started punching in the numbers, is, okay, so Bernie won the popular vote in Iowa and he won New Hampshire, but hey, pump the brakes, that doesn't mean he's gonna win. Because hypothetically, if there weren't all these centrists muddying the vote up, one of them would be able to beat him. So I want your reactions, and then we're gonna get to the actual data that they're alluding to but not addressing.
So my first reaction is that one of the dominant strains in the American political discourse is that no one has any sort of memory at all. They don't remember what happened 3 months ago, let alone 4 years ago, but I remember what happened 4 years ago, which is that they said the same exact thing in the Republican primary. They were like, oh yes, Trump got 30% of the vote in this state, but if you add up Kasich, Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Jeb Bush, they beat him. So so Trump lost. And what happened? Trump won. Because that's not how politics works, as you said. So the fact that they can say this with a straight face and not realize that they said the exact same thing 4 years ago and it didn't play out is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
I just think the word ceiling, I've been hearing that repeated a lot, and you'll see sort of these little code words that are then picked up. I heard my mom say, but I'm worried about the Sanders ceiling. I was like, what? Where did you read that? What graphic was that from? Right? Salissa,
probably.
Right.
Well, what they don't understand is that the ceilings in politics are a real thing, but it's when you measure favorability to unfavorability. Your unfavorability rating is more or less your ceiling. If someone's made up a bad opinion about you and it's bad, it's very hard to change that person. But what happens with most politicians is that they have a favorability rating, then an unfavorability rating, which is much smaller, and then a whole group of people that don't have an opinion, and those are the gettable people. So ceilings are real, but Sanders has the best net favorability rating out of any of the Democratic candidates. The ceiling thing is fake. He doesn't have a lower ceiling than any of the other people. That's just a media invention.
And I think that you might be onto something, because what if we didn't hypothetically add together a whole bunch of candidates that are not the same person and can't be combined like a Megazord and Power Rangers? What if we actually polled people, here are your two choices in the Democratic primary, how would these things go? Because again, the data download is intended to make you think that if there was one centrist who was just melded together of all of them, they'd beat Bernie Sanders. Hell, they'd beat Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Okay, well, let's test that hypothesis. So there was a study, let's see, a poll. What if it was Joe Biden? It was just him and Bernie Sanders. Bernie would win by 4. Okay, Elizabeth Warren versus Bernie, slightly different thing. He still wins by 2. But then once you get beyond that, it gets ridiculous. Like, he beats Bloomberg by quite a bit. Buttigieg by almost 20. Amy Klobuchar by 21 points.
Yes.
So the idea is, well, I mean, if Buttigieg dropped out and then Klobuchar got that support and Biden's kind of down, like, it's lucky for Bernie that it wasn't just Klobuchar. No, if it had just been those two, this race might be over right now.
Yeah.
And it's no offense to any of the candidates, they're doing the best they can. But the data download and all of these conversations on panels on CNN and MSNBC are pretending we don't have access to data that they're gonna just speculate for hours about.
Well, the other thing that data tells me, and it's kind of a hot take, but it's that, at this point, Elizabeth Warren's candidacy is only harming Bernie Sanders. So
probably,
if she actually cares about any of the progressive policies that she claims to care about, the best thing she could probably do is drop out and endorse.
And that would be a great way for her to get back some of the good faith of people in that movement, perhaps for a later run.
I just want to say that if, back to what Nando was saying about Trump and how the media tried to add up all the moderates to, overpower Trump, and how they get it so wrong every time. Listen, if you like Bernie Sanders and you're mad that the media is getting it so wrong about him, just take that as a win, because it means he probably will.
Yeah, that's a good point. People
the media
hate
gets
the
it
media.
wrong. If the media is getting it wrong, then that means, basically it's opposite day every time you turn on the news.
Yeah, I was talking about approval ratings earlier. If you look at the media's approval rating, it's somewhere at like 9%.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
Touché.
bankers literally have a higher favorability rating than the media. So if the media hates your candidate, you're probably doing something right, and that candidate probably is gonna win because people will do whatever the opposite is of what the media tells them to do.
Right.
Can we end on a slight positive note potentially?
Yes.
So they didn't just do this for Bernie versus everyone, they did it for all the different candidates. So let's, after 1/3 of $1 billion spent, let's see how Mike Bloomberg, who has had 100% control of the message in a way that I don't think any candidate in our lifetime has ever had, how does he fare against all of these people? Bernie Sanders crushes him. Elizabeth Warren crushes him, almost the same amount. Joe Biden beats him handily. Pete Buttigieg beats him. Klobuchar beats him. So I know that this is again, I'm almost doing a data download. This is not how it's gonna go. You're not gonna have just Mike Bloomberg in one of these necessarily. But if you did, as of right now, this is really pre-critique. He loses to literally all of the other candidates.
Right. But he's so electable.
So electable, as long as you don't have to actually run him in an election against one person. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hopefully this will not be the last time we talk about Mike Bloomberg, because it is
please
fun.
no. He's a lot of fun.
Again, the
He is
great
fun.
unifier.
Exactly, of us anyway. Where can people find more of your great work?
Nando Arvila on Twitter.
Yeah, at FrannyFio on Twitter and Instagram.
There you go.
I deactivated my Instagram.
Good for you.
I took the plunge. It's just not good for you, I don't think.
And yet you're on
good at
Twitter.
it. Well, Twitter,
But
I
the animals.
I can process
baby?
Twitter better than most people, maybe because I'm like weird like that. But Instagram is it's just a distraction.
Okay, we'll talk more. Okay, stick around, second hour coming right after this.
Can you name the representative of your district?
The representative of my district, oof.
I have no idea.
I actually don't know who the representative of my district is.
Do you know what the corporate tax rate is?
I think it's pretty high. I should know this.
Like in between 20-25%. I don't know.
How many amendments are in the US Constitution?
Oh no.
This brings me back to grade school.
I should know this because I was a history major, but I do not remember.
I don't know that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no clue. Nope. I don't know the answer to that one.
You don't know? I didn't know. It's time to change that. We live in the best country in the world. We live in the most powerful country in the world. We love our American freedom, but only half of us take part in the political process. Only half of us vote. We don't fulfill our duties as US citizens to make this country a better place. It's time that we use our voices as a team, as a country, to become better. We will stand up. We will be empowered. We will stay educated and informed about politics every single day because it's our responsibility. And Politiscope just made it easy for you. So join me, join us, and let's be Americans.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
Welcome back now to the second hour, everybody, with Brett Ehrlich, who's going to be driving the boat here.
We'll
and
see.
Jason Carter.
Hey guys,
glad
hi.
to have you here.
Glad to be here.
So happy to have Jason here. It is a pop trigger heavy panel.
It is.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they're gonna do a liquidation sale of pop trigger merch. Just know that.
Oh,
that's a teaser.
That's a good idea.
Wait, what pop trigger merch do we still have?
We'll talk.
Okay.
It's very unfashionable.
I got none of it while I was here on Pop Trigger. I didn't get jack.
Well, I'll hook you up, sir, as
Rude.
much as I can.
Cool.
We're gonna work on that. Before we get into the news, though, we did have some messages, and I really appreciate. I'm not gonna read all of them, but I got a lot of agriculture-related tweets because we were talking about Mike Bloomberg, his comments about farmers, and I talked about the time I grew the most massive tomato plant ever that literally never had a tomato. So apparently, I'm supposed to add more nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium.
Yeah,
so thank you, Linda.
But you
Very
can
nice of
learn
you.
that.
Yeah, but you have to learn that because it's hard.
Yeah,
Google search, John.
Exactly. I tried. I watched videos. There's some actually really good gardening YouTube channels. Most people don't.
Gardening's hard though. Having a green thumb is very hard. We plant it's very hard to keep things alive. I've killed many a plant. Peter, don't. I'm not on purpose. But
strangled.
Like, oh, you ficus, you can go to. No, I just didn't water it for days.
And Andrew Grew. I think this is like a comparison to possibly Buttigieg. Andrew Greer says Twitter is just brain farts given flight, which is beautiful, really. So thank you for that. And with that, Brett, why don't you take over?
One really quick programming announcement for all of you out there. The Nevada debate is coming up. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, J.R. Jackson, and Anna Kasparian are covering the Nevada Democratic primary debate. Tune in Wednesday, February 19th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Time on TYT.com/live. We will have extended coverage for members as always, which you will get at TYT.com/join. Sign up. Amazing, Wednesday, February 19th. That's a great panel.
That should be fun.
That's a real good looking panel there.
Good. God, John, stop smizing so hard at me.
I was just gonna say that. Model, John.
I think I was trying to, and that was freaky right there. Did you all notice what was happening?
I think that's Shakur with the artful fade back.
Anyway,
okay, so we have a lot going on in the news. We'll get into it right now. Here it is. So it is very important when you're president of the United States, or at least traditionally it has been, that you know other world leaders. And this is the time when prospective candidates should be on their A game and able to identify anybody that they might have to do business with should they become president of the United States. During an interview with Telemundo ahead of the Nevada caucuses, there were a number of candidates asked to identify the Mexican president, Obrador. And they didn't do so well. First up is Amy Klobuchar. Let's take a look.
What do you know about the Mexican president?
Okay, well, what I will tell you is that I will visit Mexico in the first 100 years. 100 days.
100 days.
I will visit there.
Are running for president.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Mexican president now?
Well, I know that he is elected in the last few years. I don't know him personally. I've met with the ambassador, and I was actually supportive of the trade agreement. So I worked with the embassy on that. They came to meet with me.
And I ask because it's so important, especially Nevada, California, Arizona, Texas. This is our neighbor to the south. Do you know anything about him? Specifically his politics, what he's doing, since this would be the country you would share a border with? Anything you can tell me about him?
I know that they are neighbors, and regardless of who the leader is, that it is someone that I will work with.
Do you? I'm sorry to ask this, but do you know who he is? Do you know his name?
Yeah. I know that he is the Mexican president.
But can you tell me his name?
No. So.
Don't you think it would be important if you're running for president to know who the president of Mexico, the country to the south of the United States, is?
Yes.
Because it affects so many Americans. Mexican Americans are the largest Hispanic, the largest number of Hispanics in the US are Mexican Americans.
Of course it is, yes.
And I will look it up immediately, I promise you. And you know what she's never gonna forget?
Obrador, cringe worthy. And she's on Noticias on Telemundo. Like when you're
yeah, what do you think about this?
Well, these people that are running for office, or anyone that's in the public eye, be it a politician, you're heavily media trained, right? And you also have a team of people, or someone, or an assistant who is like, okay, you're going in here to talk to these people. Here are the bullet points and the pertinent information you need to know in regards to what you're gonna be talking about today. I don't know who got fired that day for not telling Amy Klobuchar who the president was, and then the guy doubled down. All the questions were very just like, do you know your ish, Amy?
Yeah.
And you don't.
Yeah.
And the piece de resistance, what's the president's name?
And then her answer, he's the Mexican president. I know he's the Mexican president.
For 100 days.
I know there are neighbors.
Yeah.
Who was she looking at when she was looking for someone to throw her like a life preserver,
or to throw a stapler at?
Right, because Amy Klobuchar is known to have like or rumored to have quite the fiery streak as a boss, and yell at her staffers and throw staplers at them.
So I think I felt really bad when she was looking up, because she looked so uncomfortable. And honestly, that line of questioning where he ended the first question, or her answer, sort of understanding that she probably doesn't know much, and he just wanted to press to see. Like, I wanted that with Trump so much in 2016. Like when he's asked like what his favorite like verse in the Bible is, and it's clear that he's literally never cracked the front cover. Like I want them to press, and I feel like more often than not, they probably would come up dry with a lot of these politicians. And the thing is, like she's a senator, she's running for president. At some point, does it become kind of unacceptable? to not know? Like, you were a senator involved in a trade deal involving Mexico.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and she's not the only one, to be fair, which we're gonna get to, but.
Yeah, and especially because she is trying to be that person from the Midwest who revitalizes the manufacturing sectors, and vital to that is the renegotiated USMCA, and at least, because it's not just that she doesn't know his name, seemingly. It also seems that when he follows up with like, do you know the like situation or the circumstances under which he was elected, any of his politics, and he's more leftist than pretty much the known history of Mexico.
Yeah.
And that would be an interesting thing to know, or at least something you would assume, even if she can't summon the name, because some people are bad with names.
Sure.
At the very least, you could like describe him, or like say, he's got gray hair and he's, he's been around for a while, and like that kind of stuff. But it is really rough. I don't know. So she, as you mentioned, she isn't the only one. Tom Steyer, billionaire Tom Steyer, not as high an expectation game with him to know everybody. He is, however, quite exuberant when you see him interviewed. How does he handle it?
Can you tell me what you know about Mexico, about its president and about the current government? What do you know about Mexico?
Look, Mexico has had an issue in terms of governmental control for a really, really long time.
I'm just interested in your thoughts on the president. What can you tell me about him?
I don't know that much. I mean, I've read about him, but I don't know that much about him.
What do you know about him? Being that he's the neighbor to the South, very important to whoever's president of the United States.
They elected a left-wing guy who's very progressive, who's the absolute diametric opposite of Donald Trump.
I feel like a lot of the times, this is our neighbor to the South, and a lot of people don't even know his name. So you know.
I forget.
Do you know his name?
I forget, but I'm just saying, I followed this policy.
I'm sorry, we are Telemundo and our viewers are Hispanic speakers, and you're running you want the candidacy to represent the Democrats, but you can't tell me the president of Mexico. You don't know who the president of Mexico is.
I followed this election. I've watched what's happening. Don't you think it's
important to know who the neighbor to the South is?
I do.
But what do you say to the viewers after not knowing who Andrés Manuel López Obrador is?
Because what I do know is who he is. I do know what he stands for. I do know the history of Mexican politics. I have followed that. I go to Mexico every single year.
Yeah, so what do you think? He did have more contextual background on Obrador, but he didn't have the name. He was still pushed the same way. What do you think?
Lesser of two evils here, right? So we saw Klobuchar completely fail at made it look, I don't want to say ridiculous, but it was a little uncomfortable to watch, yes? But this guy, he leaned into him not knowing, but said, look, I don't know his name, but I know what he stands for, he's leftist, and didn't allow I feel like the interviewer was not, I don't want to say bullying him, but kind of
a little bit mocking.
We've done this interview thing. We've interviewed people in like what seems to be the kind of room, maybe this looks like a junket room to me. It's like a dark, unidentifiable room.
Like a spotlight.
Where people are coming in and moving along, and this seems like he gets to interview a bunch. But like, at what point do you draw the line? I feel like it changes. Like, I've done a lot of junket interviews with like people who have been in like Hot Tub Time Machine, and I'm like, I don't want to. This is not the time to do the hard-hitting interview.
Right.
But at what point is it weird for him to keep pressing?
It was weird to keep pressing. After he gave as much context as he did, which was good, which was like he knew his political leanings, etc. He could have backed off a little bit, and then the interviewer, of course, he's working for Telemundo, which we know the weight that and the culture for Latinx that Telemundo has. He leans in, it's like you're on Telemundo right now. You should know that our audience is Latinx, Hispanic, and they would like for you to know who the president of Mexico is. And I want to lean on that humans forget, but I think
you're so pure of heart. That's what I love about you, Jason.
I will also say though, if you are ascending to a place where you want to have power, which is running for the president of the United States, it's your job to be as aware and abreast of every powerful political figure as you can in the world, including our neighbors to the south, because that's what they keep using. As journalists, we have to make sure we're abreast of so much in order to be factual and to make sure our audience gets fair and balanced news, right?
Yes.
So I would add, I think it did come off a little bit aggressive, but I think I think it's perfectly fine to ask, do you know their name?
It is.
Yeah.
Because
but not.
We got that he didn't know the name. That's my only. Just like from my.
I think you need to make it clear.
Being in those
he
interviews.
obviously knew a little bit more about the last election. He knew at least
a lot
something.
more.
Yes.
He didn't
more
know
than
the dude's
Klobuchar.
name. He didn't know his name.
Oh, 100%. And the reason that this stands out so much is, like, you're specifically running to replace a guy who a lot of people know as incurious, believes he knows everything without actually doing any of the study, doesn't take any of this seriously. Like, you do not want to ever project a Trumpian approach to governance. And especially, this isn't like, I don't know, pick a random country that we haven't had a lot of relations with in the past few years.
Yeah.
It's Mexico. We just had the USMCA, like, which I guess for Steyer maybe isn't as important, but as a businessman, you'd think he'd be tapped into it. But definitely for any senator who was voting on this thing like a month ago.
Yeah. There's one more video that we haven't seen yet, and I do want to play it because I haven't seen it either. Buttigieg was asked the same question, so we have that video. I want to see it for myself.
Mexico is among the most important bilateral relationships we have, and that's why it will be one of the very first bilateral visits I make as president.
Do you know anything about what's been going on lately?
You know, I haven't followed all of the internal politics, but what I know is that there are steps being taken by a government in a country that I think is under a lot of pressure. Not only pressure from the behavior of the American government, but of course pressure from the arrival of so many Central American migrants who are fleeing for their lives. And we should not expect Mexico to manage these things alone.
I have to ask you, can you tell me who the president of Mexico is?
Yeah, President López Obrador, I hope.
You're the only one that's been able to tell me that today.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I'm no expert on Mexican politics, but yeah, certainly, President López Obrador is one of the most important leaders in the hemisphere.
He did it. He did it.
And he pronounced his name right. And see that.
And afterwards went.
Yeah, that was a little bit. He's very happy with himself for getting it right. And look, apparently he should be, since no one else can do it. But he was a bit too proud, I think, a bit too happy.
He could be a bit too happy, but therein lies, again, this sounds so media training 101, but you read the room, you know the room you're going into, right? I'm sure Buttigieg knew, he probably had that information before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was going to be on Telemundo, which, as I said earlier, is massive with Latinx and Hispanic and etc. You make sure you know your stuff. Yeah. Point blank period. Point blank period.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we got a whole bunch of updates about the coronavirus, the way people being evacuated are being treated, as well as some racial elements in the coverage of it. So we'll be back.
The TYT Army is all about making a difference, and the Army's growing. They've been building local TYT Army chapters around the country and fact-checking media bias. They're making decisions on which candidates and elected officials to help, and always coming up with ways to inform people about progressive policies. Now, we want to give a special shout out to some special volunteers and highlight accomplishments of our TYT Army. We can't do it without you. In Michigan, State Leader Tira West is expanding and supporting several local teams. She recently helped to train team member Justine Tanner to step up to become captain so that Justine can organize her own events. Here's what Tira has to say. I'm excited to announce that Justine has agreed to be our Grand Rapids TYT Army 1-star captain. This will allow me to focus on being the Michigan 3-star captain. Tira West, TYT Army, Michigan State Leader. I love it. Thank you, Tira, for leading the way in Michigan, and Justine for stepping up to help expand the TYT Army. You are TYT, and you are making a difference. To learn more about the TYT Army and how you can help from home or even start your own chapter, head to tyt.com/army.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
TikTok, TikTok.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
TikTok, TikTok.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. TikTok. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. TikTok. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock. And we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
With Doe, you can turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell them what you're interested in, and they'll help you uncover the investment potential. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news, and your favorite stocks and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back, everyone. You guys had a lot to tweet and member comment in about that last segment.
Oh, good.
And so I wanted to read a couple of those. In the member comments, and by the way, if you'd like to send in comments as a member, have them read as a member, you have to become a member, which you can do at tyt.com/join. Annika says someone is getting a stapler to the head later, LMAO, which might be true. But Biden kisses his granddaughter on the mouth.
He does, it's true. That name is just a declarative sentence based in fact.
I know people do it, but don't. God, ever since John Oliver pointed out that Tom Steyer only has one tie, I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Although, as you pointed out, it might be a family thing.
It might be a family plaid of the Steyers.
It's not a bad tie, but I've literally never seen him in a different tie.
It's a bold tie.
Yeah.
It's a bad bold tie.
It's bad, you don't like it?
It's terrible.
I think it's bad too, I'd never wear it.
Yeah, wait, John,
I don't have that tie.
John, later.
Okay, after the show, I want you to look in my tie drawer and you tell me what's acceptable, because now I don't trust myself. Let's see, and we also had a super chat from the Gym Tanker who says, I got a text from the Bloomberg campaign today. Not a good day for them. I think that after I got done with them, they will be a Bernie supporter. Thank you, TYT.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, but then they'll remember how much they're getting paid. So, but good try, good try.
Yeah.
With that, why don't we jump back into it?
Really quickly, we have an announcement about our aspiration sweepstakes. You may have seen ads for it, but just to put a lantern on it. The sweepstakes is almost over. If you want to have dinner with the hosts of TYT, the sweepstakes is almost over. Make sure you head over to tyt.com/dinner in LA to have dinner with John, Anna, and Cenk. We have only a little bit of time left until February 29th, so sign up and earn as many entries as you can. tyt.com/dinner in LA. Sign up. We've told you a million times. You've heard it on the telecast today. Follow these easy to follow instructions that you see playing out before you. Every time you swipe is an additional way to enter, an additional entry in the contest. And the winner is gonna come out here to LA, have a great time, put up in a hotel and dinner with these fools. So it'll be great. And I say fools in the flattering late 90s sense of the word. Okay, there's no good way to transition. You guys didn't say fools?
Yeah.
All right, have it your way. Coronavirus, let's get into it. The coronavirus is still running rampant all over the world. There are 3,600 passengers who've been stuck on a cruise ship. However, in Yokohama, Japan since February 4th, some of them are American. Now, more than 300 Americans quarantined on the Diamond Princess cruise ship for almost 2 weeks finally headed home Sunday night, which sounds like amazing news until you hear what they had to go through in order to get home from that ordeal. At least 456 people on the Diamond Princess tested positive for the novel coronavirus, which has killed more than 1,700 people and infected more than 71,000 others worldwide. The Americans were transported back on a modified cargo ship, which we have a picture of the inside of. So what they did is they took a bunch of seats, and in order to have it, I guess, not be part of a potentially, not contaminate a passenger plane, they went over there, loaded all these people up. And what was interesting is, as you see, that's not a normal cargo plane. Here's an excerpt from an article on CNN. It says, "This is a converted cargo 747, the official said to people who were evacuating, wearing full protective gear. So there is less insulation than a regular passenger jet, so bring extra layers to stay warm." Before they boarded the planes, the passengers sat for hours on buses with no access to bathrooms. Jeez. Once on board the aircraft, they sat in temporary seats with makeshift bathrooms and no passenger windows. So let's stop there for a second.
Yeah.
Imagine going on I was supposed to go to Japan. I don't think I'm going in next week. But like, these people were on a cruise. The cruise ship, they say, is the most infected place on the planet. And you think you're on your way out, but then you have to go through this horrific ordeal.
Horrific is a good word, Brett, but just the trauma, because imagine being stuck on a cruise ship. You're told that you could possibly be infected with this new virus and there's no cure for it. No one knows anything about it, but people are dying, right? And then finally you survive miraculously. And then you're placed in close quarters with other people who you don't know if you're infected. It's just all these things that are really crappy that are happening to you, and then you get the treatment you get on your way home is less luxurious than when you were on the cruise ship. Is anyone not afraid? I'm afraid of the 71,000 people have been diagnosed, right? And it seems like day over day, when you turn on the news, it's even more people, and you're finding out it's in different parts of the world besides where it originated. And now in the United States, they're saying how many? 467 people?
There are 456 people on this one coronavirus,
right.
On this one coronavirus cruise alone.
So 15 as of today were diagnosed, but there's 60 are pending. But there's Okay, so that's alarming. That's an epidemiological disaster waiting to happen, because we don't know the communication rate of this virus, or I'm sure, I mean, there's not a lot on it. What?
Yeah, 15
Am I the only one that's like not freaking out about this?
I'm freaking out about everything. I always freak out about it, but like, there's a bunch of levels to it. I mean, John, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so look, I've now done, I don't know how many different stories about it. We've had experts on the show, on the conversation, also on the Darren Report this morning. I had a doctor come on to talk about it. And I have been trying very hard to be the right amount freaked out. You don't want to be too freaked out, because that can be more dangerous, in terms of its effect on society than the actual disease. And you don't want to be too reassuring, because more than 1,000 people have died, which is really, really bad. But the doctor that came on my show today reminded us that the seasonal flu in the United States kills 60,000 people every single year. And look, 1,000 people have died. More than 11,000 have been cleared after having it. So the survival rate is actually quite good. There's, in any individual country, there might be a few dozen or a few hundred cases, but I understand you don't want to go to Japan.
Yeah.
However, if you went to Japan, you'd almost certainly be totally fine. I mean, you might catch other things, but not that.
I would definitely.
You know how many people die every year from pollution, respiratory illness caused by it's millions of people.
Right.
So let's just put it in perspective.
Right.
You're most likely to be killed by someone who's texting and driving, honestly.
Perspective's fine. I don't know. I think, those are all great points.
It is
John.
scary.
Because again, it's knowledge, right? The flu. All these people die of the flu, but there's also ways to combat and cure the flu and take care of the flu, especially in the United States alone. So I just feel, and I don't want to get all conspiracy theorists with it, but I feel like we're on the precipice of something bad with this coronavirus.
I get it.
No mass hysteria for TYT members, but it just seems like every single day there's 400, 200 more new people that are now infected with this. And it's like this onslaught of where did this come from?
And definitely no matter where you are, burn all your clothes. The only safe way.
Get out of them first.
But yeah, that's how I deal with all this. There's all those, this is exactly the kind of story that like people's parents send to them. Where it's like, I don't know why I felt compelled to send this to you, other than it is, you put yourself in the position of folks like this. There's Kerry Maniscalco is one of the people that was on the cruise, and she said, no one here has had their temperature taken by the federal government or any government for that matter. So we're all sitting in really close, tight quarters. Everyone's sitting next to each other. I have a girl sitting here in just a minute. It seems dangerous. They have sent over a dozen emails reassuring us that there would not be an additional quarantine. And they just told us that we'd be re-quarantined for 14 more days, said a sobbing Kerry Maniscalco. And it's that. It's just, I think in the time that we have when people are freaking out about it, myself included, it's just in order to ground ourselves, we at least, like, it is decent of us to put ourselves in the shoes of these people who go through that kind of stuff. So that is that angle of the story. There's another fascinating and kind of soul-crushing angle of the story in terms of how it relates to the media that I'd like to transition to right now. So, as the coronavirus wreaks havoc on many people, as the coronavirus has killed multiple people around the globe, and we are trying to all figure out how to deal with it here in America, there's an interesting development that's happened as the media relates to people who are being affected that you wouldn't necessarily think would be affected by it. And that is the intersection of racism and the coronavirus. There are a lot of people who are being discriminated against and are facing racist attacks and lesser known like microaggressions, I guess, as a result of them being Asian in America while the coronavirus is being covered in the news. A 16-year-old boy in California's San Fernando Valley was physically attacked this week by bullies in his high school who accused him of having the coronavirus simply because he is Asian American. He needed an MRI. They didn't give a lot of information about this. The FBI is launching an investigation into that. And then in Austin, Texas last week, Amy Wong Mok, the president of the Asian American Cultural Center, told CBS Austin that when one of her staff members coughed at a local fitness center, other patrons left. And she said that she just coughed because she came in from the cold, and just the change in the air, she just kind of a small cough and people left the building. In a similar incident, a Vietnamese American 8th grader in Los Angeles was sent to the nurse's office at his middle school on Wednesday because he coughed from swallowing water. When the nurse cleared him to return to his classroom, the 8th grader alleges that his peers teased him about having the coronavirus. His mom is a local anchor who said, he actually said to me, all the other students who are coughing, they don't get sent out, but they're not Asian.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, yeah,
and certainly expected. And we've seen this in other cases. I mean, when Ebola was a big topic of conversation, there was fear mongering around where that comes from. When MAINS was a thing, SARS and swine flu and pig flu and all that before that. Like anytime a disease originates from outside, or AIDS as well, anytime a disease originates from outside of the neighborhood you grew up in, you want to know who should I be scared of as a result of that. And unfortunately, in America, there are politicians who are all too ready to use that to weaponize xenophobia against different groups. So when you hear about caravans, there's always gonna be stories about diseases in the caravans because they want you to see individuals as being inherently dangerous. And when they can't portray them as criminals, they're gonna portray them as purveyors of illness. And just the natural predisposition towards racism in this country, when people are scared about their health, when they hear about people dying, like our worst instincts come out.
Right. I mean, there's nothing else to say about this, but it's just, it's ridiculous and it's unacceptable how these children are being treated. And in the case of the young man, you just have ill-equipped, immature students as being horrible kids, but that doesn't excuse their bad behavior.
So there is a journalistic association, Asian American Journalists Association, on Thursday called on news outlets reporting on the coronavirus outbreak To be accurate and mindful about their coverage, the statement warned against using generic imagery of Chinatowns or of Asians wearing masks unless they're properly contextualized and relevant to the story. And that's why, I mean, you'll see our stuff is literally of people being screened in China for this virus surrounding that specific instance, but there apparently had been cases of people just being like, oh, China, let's just pull the Chinatown B-roll, and that's what we run. And it's unfair. In January also, Rush Limbaugh called for the US to enact, quote, a ban on Chinese passengers being permitted into the country. And Coulter also called for a ban attacking Congress for failing to, quote, block the coronavirus that will kill Americans. That's the kind of stuff.
So stupid and small-minded.
And
There's
irresponsible.
disease everywhere.
Right. To me, it is scary, and I know I don't want to incite hysteria with you guys watching, but to me it just seems like we don't know enough about this virus. And yeah, you had an expert on that said that gave you a little bit more insight to who dies from the flu, things of that nature. But it just seems day over day it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And much like diseases that have ravaged the world previously, it starts small and spreads, of course. So I have been trying to educate myself more on the coronavirus, but it's scary in a time where you think things like this don't happen. Like how often do you ever hear of?
Dude, you're looking at a guy who freaked out over killer bees and has carried that same paranoia needlessly and it's through this, and that's why I see like it looks like the Asian American. The Journalists Association is trying to kind of get a handle on it and send out being like, the media can't freak out too much of it. And that's why I feel like weird. I'm like, it's ravaging the globe. And in a certain way it is, but by another token, when you look at like the graphs that they put out in terms of how contagious it is and what the mortality rate, what you can then kind of pinpoint what the hysteria is about. And that's it being new.
Right.
Yes.
And not knowing what.
And we don't have a vaccine yet, although it's coming.
Right.
Yes.
And therein lies my worry.
Yeah.
But hey.
But we're gonna
not gonna get you.
I'm not going
to be okay.
We're gonna give you precisely. We're gonna give you precisely 4 minutes to worry about it during this break, and we'll be back with the rest of the show.
Somebody asked me, do you consider yourself a progressive? And I said something like, well, I don't really like labels. I mean, I don't know. I haven't really thought about how I label myself.
To me, being a progressive is to fully embrace the fact that there is one inevitable constant in life, and that is there will always be change.
To be a progressive nowadays means to believe in democracy. The very pillars of our democracy are under threat.
To me, being a progressive means that I have a say in what goes on, that I have a right to voice my opinion, that I have a right to argue about what I think is proper, just, important.
Being a progressive means believing in universal healthcare and viewing healthcare as a right for all of Americans, not a luxury.
And I'm so passionate about progressive issues, particularly climate change.
That I believe in the rule of law, that I believe no one is above the law, and that includes the President of the United States.
Believing in criminal justice reform, looking at our criminal justice system here in the United States, and heavily changing it and modernizing it for the times.
For me, being a progressive means doing the work to fight to create a world that's just and equal for everybody, a world that's better tomorrow than it is today.
Wanting everybody to be treated fairly and like human beings, not backing down from other people who seem to disagree with that.
I believe in justice. I believe in supporting the rights of patients in this country and a health care that's affordable.
We need to embrace all people in the United States, all people of color.
Supporting dreamers and supporting immigration rights and DACA.
I feel that the problem with conservative thought, as William F. Buckley once said, was conservative is someone who stands athwart history and screams halt. That's the problem. It doesn't halt.
I believe in checking, if not completely obliterating the policy of mass incarceration around this country.
Standing up for everyone as much as possible.
Supporting the LGBTQ+ community and making sure that we are moving forward and not taking steps back.
Everybody should have their basic needs met. A livable income, a house, a dwelling, someplace to live, food, and health care.
And I so wish that there was no money allowed to go to campaigns and to candidates.
Being a progressive and being an American means expressing your right to vote. All of this changes when we get out to the ballot box and we say, this is what we want, and we want it now.
Yeah, I guess I'm a progressive. And I think if you care about any of these things, you're probably a progressive too.
To be a progressive means that you're better off than a mealy-mouthed liberal, and yet you're too afraid to take personal risks to become a radical or a revolutionary. You're on the right side of most of the issues, but aren't willing to go all the way. Take one more step, come the rest of the way.
Hey guys, I'm Nick Hanauer, and I am definitely not the kind of person you usually hear on the Young Turks. Why? Because I am a blood-sucking venture capitalist and technology entrepreneur. But here's the difference between me and most of my fellow capitalists. I'm absolutely clear that rising inequality is going to destroy both the economy and our democracy. And in our podcast, Pitchfork Economics, I'm going to explain to you how the game is rigged and what we can do collectively to fix the system and create an economy that works for everybody. So please subscribe to Pitchfork Economics, and you'll find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to what remains of the second hour.
That music sounded like the credit scenes for the Larry Sanders Show.
Okay, I did not watch that.
It's like a 90s power rock.
I liked it. Nice, Edwin. Good choice. Okay, so we do have some comments about the coronavirus story. Jerry, member's comment says, and Trump cuts funding to the CDC. That is true. Great timing on that for him. Samurai TYT had a comment. I believe this is for Brett. Don't ever go to Japan, period. I am Japanese in the States and will never go back home for a while. There's nothing else, so I don't know exactly what the issue is. It seems to predate coronavirus.
I will respectfully disagree because I love it there. It is my other.
We're gonna have a debate and you guys can go at it.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
It is undebatable that this next story is hilarious. So why don't we transition flawlessly like I just did? I have vertigo, leave me alone. Okay. The Daytona 500 happened this Sunday, and President Trump was there to say, gentlemen, start your engines. And that was a big enough win. But it wasn't enough for Brad Parscale, who is Trump's campaign manager, who tweeted this. An image where he said, Donald Trump won the Daytona 500 before the race even started, and accompanying it was an awesome photo of the people at the raceway and Air Force One taking off in the background. It is perfectly timed photo, and it looks, he's kind of implying that that's Donald Trump's plane. Unfortunately, it was not. As pointed out by many people, including CNN, Trump's campaign manager tweeted a dramatic photo of Air Force One at Daytona saying what he said. The shot was of George W. Bush and his plane leaving in 2004. Parscale deleted the tweet 3 hours later. He put one up later from this weekend, as you can see, with far fewer people in the seats. Because he had to land and then get to the raceway, but this is just exactly, is this a big deal? I think it's hilarious, and I will laugh at it for many, many days.
It's definitely hilarious because you're putting a fake picture up, especially when I can see if it was like a picture from like last month or 2 months ago, but from what, how many years ago?
16 years ago. So we think it's intentional, like or did he just Google Trump, at the race and something came up and he thought that's what it was? I'm inclined to believe that guy is a gigantic liar, and so he did it intentionally, which is sort of sad.
It's just one of those things that I can't let go. You know, there's plenty of people who like make a mistake. Early in the show, we talked about some ways in which maybe like during if you forget the specific name of the president of Mexico, but for me anyways, I thought that if Tom Steyer remembered specifics of the guy's platform and you just are forgetting a name, which there's no like context, you have to slowly jog it loose from your mind. But in this situation, this is a pattern. This is a pattern of Trump misrepresenting things, and it always started small. Like it starts small and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I feel like I have to call it out every single time it happens, or else I am complicit in the nightmare and the fooling of the American people.
Yeah. So look, it sounds like he deleted it, I guess. So perhaps this isn't a case where they'll do this, but one of the things they'll often do is they'll say, Brett, you just don't get it. This is right wingers, they're just memeing, man. They're just good at memes. And like, why are you getting so worked up about this? He's just putting up some memes. Like you don't get, he's trolling you, right?
He's not.
I don't think in this case he is, because but anytime they lie and are caught, that is what they will end up saying. You're getting triggered, why are you freaking out? We knew what we were doing, it was totally intentional. It was a campaign strategy, it's what we're doing. When they were just caught lying.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's their dominant strategy to do that, and it's incumbent upon me to call them out every time they do it. I mean, and then there's people who don't care, who obviously don't care. Like the Daily Wire still has the photo up on their story about this. Trump wows Daytona Speedway by swooping Air Force One over race crowd. They know ostensibly that this is not that photo. This photo is not of that event, but they have left it up anyway because they definitely don't care. And we can remember all the way back to the inauguration. As Jonathan Swain wrote in 2018 about something that happened in 2017, a government photographer edited official pictures of Donald Trump's inauguration to make the crowd appear bigger following a personal intervention from the president, according to newly released documents. And then we remember the discrepancy of the crowd size when he was talking about the biggest, on the left is Donald Trump, on the right is Obama. And the same space is filled with way more people for Obama. And this is the stuff that like, as we slowly careen toward insanity, I just need to like have my totem like I'm in Inception to make sure that I know that it's not fake.
Is it still spinning?
It's still spinning somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, what, so, never mind, nothing. Yeah, it's right. No, I think like what, at this stage in the game, or would we be accepting of him? Will we accept him being honest now? I mean, as you said, it's been happening so much. It's been par for the course. We're so used to it. What if he decided to be honest? How would we receive that?
I mean, it's weird. He is and he isn't. I don't know. It's just the pattern is all there is. There's every pattern and no pattern, and that's just because reality doesn't really matter anymore. It's the perception of power, because he just wants. He feels like he's being powerful just by a default setting of arrogant declarations of nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And my last point on this, one of the things, and I've occasionally talked about stuff like this, that bothers me so much is it's one thing to be able to look at Trump's base and say they obviously do not care that they're lied to on a regular basis. The guy that they look up to him has no respect for them. They don't care that they're being lied to. They don't care that it's a lie. They've sort of lost touch with any concern for what is true. But the real reason that it bothers me is that, look, I think that Trump supporters are a special sort of person, but I don't think that there's anything fundamentally different between them and any other person, which implies to me that under the right circumstances, other people that don't wear red caps and don't define themselves based on their relationship with Donald Trump would similarly divorce themselves from any concern for what's true. And I occasionally see it with all sorts of people in politics, and it fundamentally bothers me how contingent our concern for accuracy and honesty actually is.
Yeah. All right, we have no time, so we have to go to this last story, which we do have a little bit of time for. So, there is a weakness in Trump's wall, and it's not the wind which blew it over a few weeks ago. According to a story that we saw today, smugglers helping migrants scale Trump's border wall using $5 ladders. So ladders are its weakness. Smugglers in Juarez have engineered camouflage hook and ladders made of rebar that blend in so well with the border wall that it can be hard to detect, according to US Border Patrol. The ladders are the same rust brown color as the mesh panels or steel beams of the fence. We have some video from this story, which we'll put up as you guys react to it. These guys are scaling like
that's so scary.
30, 40 feet of wall and going down the other side.
Look, I think that this wall is as stupid as an idea as anyone, but I still, looking at that wall, would think, well, that's really tall. But no, he's fine. He's up and over.
Resilience and the ingenuity of people when you really want to do something. Yeah.
I couldn't go over that. That's too much.
No, right, but I mean, hey, if depending on your life circumstances, I mean, you know.
Wow. At this point, with the wind knocking it over, with just rebar, like a little thing, with a saw that you can get at like Home Depot cutting through it, like we have to start to compile a list. What hasn't been shown to be able to beat this wall? You remember when like they had the demonstration area and like a kid rock climber climbed up and over it? Kids have beaten the wall. I haven't seen a dog jump over it yet, but I've seen some Australian shepherds that can get up high. I don't rule it out.
In this like era where you can make an ad, and we've seen in the last 2 hours on this show, you can just make an ad like that and get it up. We've done it on this show. I would love to see the ad from the Trump campaign showing the things that cannot defeat this wall. Bouncy balls.
Go-gurt.
Go-gurt. A go-gurt resistant wall. Throw as much. Go ahead. Your move, Go-gurt.
It's made from vibranium.
Exactly.
Source from Wakanda. Just kidding.
Not even vibranium can destroy this wall, and probably just because it doesn't exist.
And it costs so much. So much.
The wall costs a lot. The president has proposed. What has he spent? $10 billion
of our
has
money.
come from taxpayer money, and he will spend an additional $2 billion if he gets his way during this next round of budget negotiations.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It says it's 3/8 inch rebar, and it costs 99 pesos, or about $5.30 at the do-it-yourself store.
Yeah.
So that's that. All right, stay tuned. The conversation is next. Francesca Fiorentini will be here. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Jason.
Hey,
thank you, Jason.
Thanks for having me, guys. And I'm gonna try not to be scared about the coronavirus.
Fair enough. We'll be back later. Don't go away.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this.
Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in a Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now.
to work to a goal, something this big that you're actually making a difference of, there's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights to fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
What were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
So Article 5 is the way we have to go.
This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
You get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pack.com.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
The earth is burning.
Yeah.
Not only that, but that should shake you enough, period, but that so many people in power don't seem to care.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
We have to also remember that we like to put people in prison in this country.
There is only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign. When you sign up for NordVPN, you'll take control of your internet experience while helping support us here at TYT. NordVPN allows up to 6 connections at once and no data limits, so you can get all the content you want on any device. For a limited time, go to nordvpn.com/TYT or use the coupon TYT to get a 3-year plan for 70% off plus 1 extra month free.
My name is Carlos Hernandez. I am the valet parking for this small parking lot. I work for TYTs and they coming to this lot over 4 years. I know two more famous person, Bernie Sanders, the former Vice President Al Gore, and too many other guys. I'm so happy to cooperate with TYT.
Internet. Once again, it is the conversation with your sometimes host, Francesca Fiorentini. How are you all? Are you ready? My first guest I'm super excited about. He's a staff writer with the American Prospect. His name's Alexander Salmon. Alexander, how are you?
We're doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Good, yes. Well, I had you on personally to talk about this article that you wrote about campaign finance and fundraising specifically when it comes to the Democratic primaries. It's such a good piece, and you basically go over 3 different lanes of fundraisers. You talk about the traditionalists, the super rich, and the reformers. And I just wanted you to just go over those with us by starting with the traditionalists. Who is raising money in this election under sort of the traditional ways that we know candidates to raise money?
Absolutely. So the traditionalists have kind of struck the kind of centrist ideological stance in this race. So that's Joe Biden, it's Pete Buttigieg, it's Amy Klobuchar, but it's also been some of the shooting stars that have already burned out. So Kamala Harris, Julian
Sweet
Castro,
way to phrase it.
and Cory Booker. So they've kind of done what Democratic politicians have done for time immemorial, which is They've done high dollar fundraising events. They've pressed the flesh with the super rich and coastal enclaves in San Francisco, on Wall Street, you name it. They've benefited from super PACs, and they've used those kind of mechanisms to put together a pretty substantial financial backing to fund them in the race.
Right, and yet it's actually not working. As you just said, there are some stars that have burnt out thus far, and those traditionalists aren't raising the kind of money that we're seeing from the reformists. These are folks who are earning or getting their money through small dollar donations. They've sworn off super PACs and big dollar fundraisers. Who are these reformists and how much money are they making? I think obviously we all know who they are, but just lay that out for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren obviously are the two who kind of represent this new approach to fundraising. And obviously Sanders had a pretty substantial grassroots army in 2016. So I think that we've kind of gotten used to it in some way, and it seems maybe less spectacular. But what he's doing in this race and what Elizabeth Warren is also doing is something that's never been tried in presidential politics at this level. And what they're doing is basically funding their campaigns entirely on small dollar donations. And that's something that's never been done. I mean, Sanders obviously, even in 2016, had a lot of the small dollar donations, but he too did some of these paid events. He did some fundraisers. And so it's a big leap of faith. And to this point, it's been rewarded, incredibly. And obviously Sanders is kind of set the high water mark again and again on these fundraising records. But, at the end of Q4, he had almost $35 million, which was obviously record setting at that point. And then in January, he turned around and brought in $25 million in 1 month.
Wow.
And, and they're startling numbers. They're extremely large, and it's very impressive. And that's not to say that Warren's numbers haven't been impressive also. It's just, Sanders are even larger. So the two of them have taken a big risk in doing this, and they've kind of gone without the corporate sponsorship or the big money sponsorship that, has been part of the process forever, and so far it's paid dividends in a major way.
And how are they stacking up against those traditionalists like Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Biden? It seems like they're raising more money than them.
Right, and that's what's so interesting about it is, especially take Pete Buttigieg, for example. He on the stump has argued that embracing these big money fundraisers is actually kind of an actively populist social good, and he's not going to turn away money from anyone who wants to help beat Trump. And that's even more extreme than we've seen from Democratic politicians in the past, even corporate Democrats. And despite that incredibly fulsome embrace of big money forces, Buttigieg's biggest quarter was $25 million, and Bernie blew him out of the water by $10 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. So it's interesting. It seems as though there actually is less money in the traditional approach all of a sudden, which is a paradigm shift that I'm not sure any of us would have anticipated going into this election. And the candidates who have hitched their wagon to the kind of large money bundlers, Joe Biden is the same way,
right,
have not put up those big fundraising numbers that actually the small dollar candidates have been able to mount.
Yeah, and I was curious about the point you made in your article that actually it's harder to fundraise from those big dollar donors. And why is that?
It's an interesting glitch in the process here, which is that those high dollar fundraisers, rich people who cut big checks, they require a lot of attention, and they like to be they need to be waited on hand and foot. And they need to have their egos massaged, as the case may be. So it takes a lot of time to raise money like that. And in the case of the kind of most ignominious moment of fundraising so far, I think in this cycle was Pete Buttigieg in the wine cave. Well, he spent hours at this wine cave having dinner, cracking jokes, uncorking his most charming one-liners and assuring his investors, as they call them, that that things are going to be fine, and he's the horse they should bet on. Well, one of the attendees, after this whole thing became a major national story, took to the Washington Post to defend the sanctity of this event. And part of what he used to defend it was that he had already given Buttigieg upwards of $2,000 and could only give $11 more before he was maxed out legally. So right. Buttigieg, spent hours attending to this guy, and I'm sure many others, but for $11, the return on investment there is not going to it's not going to blow away any of his former coworkers at McKinsey. So it's an interesting problem where it's Sanders and Warren, because they can send an email and say, we need money, we're working for you, and the money comes in. They don't have to spend so much time pressing the flesh, and it actually ends up being a more effective fundraising mechanism finally.
Right, because they can be out there and actually talking with voters, as you were saying, doing campaign events and such. Let's talk about obviously the last lane of fundraising, which is the super rich, the self-funded candidates like Tom Steyer and Michael Bloomberg, the billionaires, which I thought was fairly unprecedented, and I'm wondering if I'm wrong. Have we seen this kind of pay to play before?
You're absolutely right insofar as we've never seen it at this scale, and certainly never seen it at this level of competition. So someone like Ross Perot was a self-funded billionaire, right? And he ran for the presidency in 1992. In 1996, as a libertarian, he succeeded basically in ensuring that Bill Clinton won both times. So there have been self-funders at various levels of government. It's mostly it almost always has resulted in defeat. But we've never seen anyone like Michael Bloomberg before, and that I think is a point worth mentioning. And you're right to identify the amount of money, the sheer financial force that Bloomberg brings into this race is unlike anything we've ever seen.
Right.
And interestingly enough, it's Tom Steyer. If Bloomberg wasn't running, Steyer might be, the something we've never seen before in terms of just how much money he has behind him in his self-funded race. So it's a byproduct of this moment of acute inequality, and it is historically unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, progressives have railed against dark money for so long, and we wished it away, and now we've gotten something far worse. It's like we cut out the middleman, and now we're just left with a billionaire. And it's you as you point out in your article. And what if Jeff Bezos tomorrow decides to run for office? I mean, he's got however many more billions of dollars than Bloomberg does. But at the same time, we're in a moment where you're saying we either have these small donor-funded candidates or billionaires. What do you feel like that says about the political moment we're in?
Yeah, it's an interesting referendum on this moment. So I think it's been 10 years since Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision, was codified as law, and money has never been more involved in politics. I mean, seeping through every pore of the political process at this point, and so we've kind of reached this interesting breaking point where we can either go one way with this surprisingly democratizing small dollar approach that it's something 10 years ago we would not have even thought was possible, which is a positive development, or we can go the other way, which is this this massively financially endowed self-funded billionaire who's going to basically buy not just the apparatus needed to run a campaign, but the votes essentially to win one. And it's certainly an inflection point for us in our democracy. And I think if Sanders is able to pull this out with just small dollar donations, I think that we'll see something like campaign finance reform will be possible. Whereas if we end up with Trump versus Bloomberg as the ultimate billionaire versus billionaire slobber knocker, in a multi-billion-dollar election, I'm not sure what that portends for our democracy, but it's certainly nothing in the realm of campaign finance reform.
That's really interesting that you say that. You feel like that if Sanders can prove that he doesn't need those big donations, actually that's more of a case for campaign finance. I would think that if Bloomberg is the nominee, that would be a huge case for campaign finance reform. But of course, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That would also make us all sort of throw up our hands and be like, well, I guess you need, $60 billion to run for president. So just lastly, can it be done? Can actually we defeat, can Democrats actually defeat Republicans if they're not playing their same money game?
That's the question. That's exactly the right question to ask. Just based on my research and what I did for this piece, I think there's reason to be optimistic. And I don't want to say for sure that it's certainly going to work, but just the sheer number of donations that the Sanders campaign has brought in, and honestly, the engagement that Democrats have gotten at all over the ticket using small dollar donations, so up and down the ballot, in House races like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Katie Porter, Elizabeth Warren in the House or in the Senate rather in her previous runs, there is a lot of there's an emerging set of evidence here that says that this may be possible. And the Sanders campaign said, they think that they could raise $1 billion off of this, and I've seen no reason to think that's not true. So it's certainly a leap of faith. I think that they're against all odds is actually a real case here to say that this could work, and it will make Democrats better legislators. It'll make them better politicians because they won't be beholden to his interests. And I think it may be a winning combination, which is something, a silver lining in what's largely been a fairly dark news cycle when we talk about the presidential politics.
Absolutely. We are at a funding crossroads. Thank you so much, Alexander Salmon, for joining me. Staff writer at the American Prospect. Check out his article there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Take the money and run. I think it was run.
Take the money and run.
He just told me it was run. All right, read his article, and we will be right back after this short break.
Oh, shoot. I need some fresh shirts. Okay. Let's see. New arrivals. What's new? This is amazing. What?
Thank you, user. I have now injected my code into Shop TYT. Proceeds from this shirt will benefit me directly.
When you were growing up, what did you want to be?
I think I was starting to think I don't want to do one thing, and I did live up to that.
Well, mission accomplished then, because Dave was a geologist.
Yeah.
And now he's, helped found the Young Turks. Even within TYT, you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So if you want to do different things, you nailed it. All right, last story to end on is a Dave story. Whenever there was something like obvious, glaring, he would go up and ask them about it. Like, it'd be like a giant church, right? And somebody's standing in front of it. The usual Dave go, pull up right in front of him. Be like, hey, do you know where there's a church around here? And they're like, right here. It's right here.
Practical jokes. Spice up life a little.
Welcome to Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. I'm Brett Ehrlich, and this is Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. The Trump administration, Trump mandated Trump, that Trump, every Trump, other Trump, word Trump, be Trump, Trump.
I'd like to introduce you to our newest partner, Doe. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe is what investing should be. Unlimited, commission-free stock and ETF trading, 0 account minimums, and an investing app filled with smart ideas. Doe is the online broker radically challenging the status quo and changing wealth creation. Features include Doe Selects, where you tell them what you're interested in, and they'll help you uncover the investment potential. The Idea Feed, which is a daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes, because we all know we're busy, right? Stock Report Card, which shows you all the professional buy and sell ratings from Wall Street analysts. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Now, top. No.
is Cassandra Hanks. I've been with TYT for 3 years. I am a video editor and a photographer. A main perk for working for TYT is, as being their main photographer, I get to photograph and sometimes meet some of the celebrities that come through. Susan Sarandon was amazing because she brought her dog Penny. Tom Morello is probably my favorite because I love rock music. Meeting people like Joss Whedon and Quentin Tarantino has been some of the reasons why I got into filmmaking and photography was like a dream come true.
Welcome back to the conversation on TYT. I am your sometimes host, Francesca Fiorentini. What's up? Thanks for being here. My next guest is running for Nebraska's 1st congressional district. Her name is Babs Ramsey. Babs, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Francesca.
So you are a progressive Democrat, and on your website, I love this part where you say, my beliefs are genuine, non-focus group tested, and not aligned with what the Democratic Party thinks I should say. What inspired you, Babs, to run for Congress?
Yeah, so what inspired me to run was I watched Jessica McClure's run against Jeff Fortenberry in 2018, and I just kept thinking like, wow, I feel like I could really do this someday. And after watching him continue to vote against women's rights, didn't support raising the minimum wage, didn't support the Violence Against Women Act, and doesn't support the Equality Pay Act, I was like, I've got to run against this guy. So that's really what caused me to jump into this race.
That's a good, many good reasons. You are in a district that's a pivot district, so one or a county that voted for Obama in 2008 and then voted for Trump in 2016. Tell me about specifically the rural voters in your county and the fact you have a lot of farmers and ranchers. And I know one of your big issues is actually repealing the Trump tax cuts. How have those affected those ranchers and farmers?
Yeah, so actually the farmers in our district have taken a lot of loss in revenue from this trade war that's going on. Cumming County in my district has actually been the most affected in our state. They've lost $48 million in revenue loss from the tariffs alone. That is according to the Nebraska Farm Bureau. And since those tariffs have been imposed, we have lost over $2 billion. So our farmers are they're hurting. They want to get back and be able to actually sell their goods. I was actually in Wahoo, Nebraska a couple of weeks ago, and this farmer told me that he's not being able to sell his grain, but anything that these big ag corporations already have, they are shipping down to Brazil and just circumventing the tariffs that way because they're able to do so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So there are these workarounds because they're put in this hard spot with the trade war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the family farmers are being affected, but the big ag corporations are able to bypass a lot of these tariffs by just shipping it to a different country and then taking the extra money that China's paying or for grain and being able to make up the difference for themselves, and our farmers are still left with nothing.
So it's actually just hurting family farms and smaller farmers more than, of course, yes, the big corporations will always find a loophole. And you yourself know a lot about farming. We've just had Bloomberg claim that it's super easy and that anyone can plant a seed in some soil. So how has that informed your run? And I don't know, I also kind of am interested in your thoughts on the Green New Deal and how looking towards a future that is sustainable, right? How does that intersect with your constituents in your district?
Yeah, so despite what Bloomberg thinks, farming is an extremely hard career path. I was raised on a farm. My first job was for a farmer on the other side of our section. It's really hard work. You're tired at the end of the day, and it's dusk to dawn, for a lot of them, and you're waking up early. But to answer your question, I am the only candidate in this race that does support a Green New Deal. It's what I've been campaigning on. I want to bring to the table what we in Nebraska can provide. And what we have is ag land. And there's been multiple studies done about how we can deposit carbon into soil. And it's the second most effective way to combat climate change versus planting a bunch of trees. So we can compensate our farmers by allowing them to do the sustainable farming that they're already doing, and pay them to do it to help combat climate change.
Right. And are they receptive to that? Do they understand? I'm assuming they do, but like, how have they been receiving that idea?
Yeah, the ones that I've talked to, they're like, heck, I've been doing sustainable farming practices on my own for years, and you want to make it so I can get paid to do more of it? So they're very receptive to the idea. They think it's fantastic. So they know what to do, and they know what to increase yields, increase better farmland for beef and everything. So they're absolutely excited about this.
Yeah, and do they see themselves, because they really can be, I think family farming and sustainable agriculture, they can be on the front lines of helping to combat climate change, and we don't often put them on the front lines of this fight, but they absolutely are.
Yeah, absolutely. They are definitely on the front lines of this. They're the ones that actually are dealing with the climate change a lot more than anybody thinks. My district, last spring, we were hit by a bomb cyclone. It caused massive flooding here in Nebraska. Actually, it was over $1.4 billion that Nebraska had gotten in damage from this bomb cyclone that caused all the massive flooding. Wow. In my town of Bellevue that I live in, the Offutt Air Force Base, half of it was underwater. Going out of town into the country, there's a little town called Winslow, Nebraska, and they're actually considering moving a town that's been there for over 100 years because of all the flooding that's happening. Wow. That's crazy. These people in the rural areas are dealing with it, and they know that something has to be done, and that's been their number one thing when I've talked to them.
Wow, yeah, they absolutely are on the front lines. And so pivoting a little bit, you're trans, and if elected to Congress, you would be the first trans person in the US Congress, which is huge. I know that you started a support center for transgender people in your town. And I guess my question is around the hurdles that you faced, being trans and being in this race. What kinds of things have you confronted?
Surprisingly, there hasn't been as much transphobia out there for a district that voted overwhelmingly for Trump. You would think that you would see that more, but it's been very little. One thing that is kind of a hindrance in my race is I don't have the option to quit my full-time job to spend all day out there campaigning. And making phone calls and doing all these things, because if I were to quit my job, and I lose the race, I will be out of work for probably around a year or more, because it's really hard for trans people in Nebraska to get jobs. Right. So that's definitely a big, I work full time. As soon as I get home, I pick up my kids from school and I hit the campaign trail. Yeah, so. I'd say that's been the biggest thing.
Insane. That is huge, and I think yes, and a lot of other candidates I think are feeling the same thing. I know We spoke to, I believe it was Nabila in Georgia. Anyway, candidates who are running on getting themselves health care while they, run their races. So tell me, because you obviously you have another Democratic opponent. What can you tell me about that opponent? And your primary is coming up in May 12th. So how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good about our primary. I am running against state senator. Her name's Kate Bowles. She is a conservative Democrat. She is backed by the DCCC. She has been able to just make phone calls, and that's all she's really been doing is making phone calls to raise a bunch of money to compete in the district. But she hasn't been out talking to people, and that's all I've done from day one. I am the only candidate that supports Medicare for all. I'm the only candidate that supports a Green New Deal. I am the only pro-choice candidate. She is an anti-choice candidate.
Really?
Yes. She also was backed by the NRA in 2012 in her state Senate run. She took money from TransCanada and supported the Keystone XL pipeline, which is something a lot of people in my district strongly oppose. And she also hasn't released a single plan since entering the race to say what her issues are. She has 3 bullet points on the front page of her one-page website, and it doesn't say what she plans to do.
Wow, that you just ticked all of the trigger boxes when it comes to being a horribly corporate Democrat. And so what's your vision for Nebraska more broadly, Babs?
Yeah, so what I want to do outside of the Green New Deal and supporting Medicare for all, I want to end the trade war, and I actually have a plan to do that. One of the first things I want to do in office is I want to repeal Section 232, which is what the Trump admin is using to enforce all these tariffs that's crippling my state and many other states. And that way we can go back to trade tariffs going back to congressional approval, like we used to have. I also want to expand rural broadband. I've rolled out a very comprehensive rural broadband policy because I've worked with municipalities in the past and I've worked in technology for almost a decade. But there's currently 25 states out of 50 states that block or outright ban municipalities from creating their own ISP.
Right.
And Nebraska is one of those.
That's great.
So,
well, thank you so much. That's all the time we have.
Sure.
Babs Ramsey running for Nebraska's 1st congressional district, also with an adorably cute cat behind her. Best of luck to you, Babs. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
All right. And that is The Conversation, just a Monday edition. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
to the Dude Hour. Welcome to the post game. I had an intro in mind. And I was like, I have an intro. I've got this under control. The truth is, I now remember it. Going into the post game, John was like, "What are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about?"
Wasn't that freaked
JR
out,
says scooter,
and then suddenly it was like, "Yes,
here's 6
let's
stories."
Scoot.
But yeah,
Scooter.
so tell us about the scooter. There's a scooter outside, but I don't know where it came from or why it's there.
I'm not sure the degree. Well, I guess I shouldn't give too much of the details because I may be a little off on how exactly it happened, but. There's a startup, it's a scooter or moped, I don't know the difference.
It's a motor scooter. That's my pet
love
peeve.
that John
This is my
knows
pet peeve,
everything
which I
about
told you
it.
I was gonna have. Okay.
Oh God.
So here's the thing. I believe that words have meanings. And if you don't know the difference, it's totally fine. But people
are
who like
literally a
fight
douche.
against it. So a moped is so named because it has a motor and you can pedal it. So there is a class of generally inexpensive two-wheeled transportation that has a motor, or you can pedal it with pedals like a bicycle. So a motor scooter, like a Vespa or something like that, is not a moped because you cannot pedal it.
I would go so far as, because of how infuriating that was to hear. How
I was brief.
It was, I get it. But I think the reason people call motor scooters mopeds.
Or scooter, I'm fine with scooter, although
Scooter.
people think of like the push, scooter.
The razors
now.
Is
birds.
because of how weak sauce they are compared to a motorcycle.
But that is all.
It's a pejorative.
I will have a response. Good. But make your case.
But that's it. But I would rather do the, what is it called when you say Xerox instead of?
That's what I thought too. Go ahead.
Like Vespa. I would call them all Vespas.
When it's a brand.
Yeah, like
I used to
Xerox
think moped was that. I thought moped was an old school brand, and we decided to start
maybe it
calling
was,
them
I
all
don't know.
that.
Maybe.
But it sounds like the fact that it's motor and pedal, that sounds like it makes more sense that it's the term for what it is.
I don't remember
Here's
what the
thing.
word is for that.
So
Stupid.
This is like a different part of my life.
Portmanteau.
But maybe. Yes, it is. So I owned multiple motorcycles and I owned a scooter. It was a Yamaha. You could not pedal or anything like that, and I loved it. I've owned a Kawasaki. I've owned a Harley. But honestly, and I've used a Ducati for quite a while. But that
Sadly,
scooter
John just entered the same category as Mike Pence. People you did not expect rode motorcycles.
Mother. Hello, mother.
But no, because the people
I did for years and years. But I didn't have a car. I had a motorcycle before I ever had a car.
I can't believe I keep shaking my head because the whole room starts spinning.
Sorry.
But like, I would not expect you to ride a motorcycle, but you have many years over in the span of many years.
Yes. Yeah, and so because I like my scooters so much, when I hear people denigrate them, I really like them. And the reason is, there are a lot of people who could have a scooter rather than a car, especially in a city. They're super convenient, they're super cheap to operate. You can pack like the back compartment full of stuff. A lot of people in a city could get by with a scooter and save tons of money and emissions and traffic and all that. But they're denigrated. And so I think a lot of people don't like the idea.
How so? People call them soft?
Yeah, or whatever.
Well, because cars can run over a scooter.
That's true.
And the most it'll do is go, interesting.
So that's now we get to why I stopped, and it is not because of anything to do with motorcycles or scooters. It's all of you goddamn drivers and your goddamn cell phones, and none of you look where you're going.
Yes,
and so you've made it not safe. It's still pretty safe, but it's not safe enough.
You have to be always on the lookout. And then honestly, that's what people always say. Like, you may get bumped from behind in your car, and you're like, oh damn it, someone rear-ended me. But you have a chance. There's 0 chances on a bike or a scooter.
Wear a helmet.
Yeah, you get bumped. You get bumped. And now that's your ass and not your bumper.
I've had accidents. In LA, I had to kick an SUV because he was driving me off the road, basically. Yeah. So yeah, it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have an electric motor scooter.
It's called an electric motor scooter. Is that the term? Well, since we're getting this right.
Sure.
Yes.
John was
It's
like,
part of a partnership.
This totally reminds me of when Sarah Palin was running and her family. This is when everyone learned it's not a
snowmobile.
It's not it's a snow machine, not
a snow machine.
I was like, oh my god.
What does that mean? A snow machine is a thing they use at the skiing places.
That reminds me of when Strom Thurmond used to refer to microphones as, could you speak into the machine?
No.
Yeah, he used to do that.
Oh my god.
Speak into the machine, please.
So what
but
has happened?
You wrote it.
Yeah, what has happened at the Young Turks is we have one, and there's a partnership. I'm not sure the degree to it, so I don't know how much I'm telling.
Yeah, Kelly might just run through the door being like, stop!
So just some kind of partnership where we get to have usefulness for this scooter because we're libs. So I was intrigued because I'm not allowed to ride a motorcycle, a scooter, a moped, a motorized bike. I'm barely able to ride birds. And when I say able to, it means because my wife and my kid both think they're gonna be widowed and fatherless if they do. So
Statistically,
it's
yes.
one of those things where I don't believe it, but you get told enough times, hey, yo, so we want you to die. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm like people like I grew up in a religious household. And my parents, the number one thing is you speak into existence and now it's real. Don't speak negativity in existence if you don't want it to happen. So when you keep hearing, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, I'm like, shit. Well, let me avoid this death. So I would go around it, right? So this intrigued me, this little scooter. Motorized electric
Look at how
scooter.
respectful he is.
I like it. I like it.
We have out front, and I wrote it the other day. I posted pictures on my Instagram and Twitter of it, and I had this little top hat helmet that we just have floating around the studio. Number one, I don't like putting other people's things on my head because I don't know what's been on their head.
Lice.
That.
So today, I was like, I'm gonna ride this damn thing, and I went out and I got a full-on closed-faced helmet, like I'm riding a damn
bought it?
Harley. Yeah.
Wow, I thought you just borrowed like Jesus's or something.
No, again,
okay.
it's his head.
Ew.
I would assume that he wouldn't want my
do
head
get sweaty. They do
into
get
his,
sweaty.
right? And also, I have all this hair, so I need something that fits over all my hair, right?
That's true.
And so I went, it was a cheap one. And then so as I'm in the place, there's motorcycle people, they got full-on armor, head to toe, gloves, biking helmets. I mean, like dirt bike helmets. Like this is a hardcore place. And I'm looking at it. It's like you walk in, and I feel like everyone in there looked at me like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. It's like you walk in there going,
No matter how many bikes I owned, I always felt that same way when I'd go into one of those places. It's like
I would like a head thing, please.
Yeah. So long story short, I went through the whole thing. I narrowed in on the one, found the one that fit, and then right when I'm about to check out, she goes, "You're gonna need some gloves." I was like, upselling.
Totally.
You know what she said? She did. She goes, "I'm never sure if you ever heard of this, but let's go when degloving." And I said, "Oh, I've heard of degloving because I'm morbid and I follow a couple of like Medicalpedia type of sites that show you traumatic accidents, medical room stuff, ER things where people's hands. So I've seen a degloving, and if you think about it, imagine having a glove on, a real glove, like you're working on your car, and you take a glove off. That's what happens to your hand when you put it. Because it's just, okay, again, she goes, "What do you do when you fall? You put your hands out." So you go, and you'll rip your whole hand off of your skin and your meat, and all you'll see is a skeleton.
Your meat, it'll rip your meat off your hand.
I've never heard of it referred to as a degloving.
Look up degloving.
No, don't look it up.
Because I saw it before, so she brought up degloving. In the middle of her even saying the word, I was like, "Oh, I know degloving." I said, so these are on sale? Okay, so okay.
You're gonna need some leather pants. Have you ever heard of a de-assing?
So I'm upsold for
You don't want to get to the de-dicking. You get de-dicked. I guess the glove, it would be de-condomed.
Here's a Kevlar condom. They come in packs of 6.
And the ones that protect that, they call it ribbed for your protection.
Oh my God.
Or for your pleasure.
Jesus.
So I bought the gloves too. The point of this whole thing is now on a motorized scooter, electrified scooter.
A scooter.
I'm wearing gloves with like red trim and like armor on the back of the like the armor's on the back of the knuckles.
Yeah.
And then a full-on helmet. Top down. I'm on this thing like this.
I mean, look, the thing is, like, when you are on a thing and you're going 30 miles an hour and then suddenly you're flying through the air, like when you contact the ground, God's not like, wait, was it a Harley? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you fall off of.
And that's the right mindset, exactly. That's why I did it, and it's gonna make, I'm the type of person, once I have the equipment, it's gonna make me wanna do more. Like, I learned to snowboard years ago, just because I borrowed some friend's snowboard, and after I was out there, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna get my own jacket, I'm gonna get my own gear, I'm gonna get my own right kind of goggles. I went in because I'm like, now I'm excited about this. So when I do something like this, it gives me the urge to go, I mean, I ride a little motorized scooter around. Why can't I ride a motorcycle? This is easy.
Oh God,
why
Jesus
can't I be
is gonna-
badass?
Jesus
Hey,
is
you know
gonna
what?
push you so
I'm a
hard to my
badass.
bike.
Yeah, he is.
I'm gonna get one of those damn things.
Those
where
I
you sit
never
there like
understood.
this.
Ape hangers,
Dude,
Yeah.
if people in the used to drive up to
I don't get it.
like San Luis Obispo a lot because my uncle lives up there, and people on the open road. There is no way in hell that is sustainable.
I don't
You
get
see
it.
them like this because they were like, "That's a bad idea." They're like, "Ugh," because they're not both the throttle, are they?
No, just fine.
One of them, so you can't even like
Can't
switch
even, like,
off.
yeah.
They're the the bigger bikes
Once you
could
get it going,
potentially have
Yeah.
cruise control.
Good
But
to know,
most
'cause
bikes
that's
do not. But
Stupid.
yeah, I don't get that.
It looks cool for a second.
So I have a certain amount of time to convince my wife that I'm not gonna die if I actually motorcycle.
Don't do it. I
But
rode
you're gonna
a
at least ride this one a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I was very excited. I tried it out too. I haven't ridden in a couple of years, and it was cool.
So did you have an accident?
I've had a couple of accidents. Nothing
I'm
bad.
sorry.
Nothing bad.
Oh, I forgot this part.
I got
With the lady,
degloved once.
The lady in the shop, she goes, you know, she said, so right before she tells me about degloving, she goes, because you know, things happen, and she held up her hand and it was like this.
Oh, nice, cool.
So her ring
like-
finger was like.
It was a
35.
cooking accident.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Still,
Did it fishing? That's
Yeah.
weird.
And she goes,
But it looks
'cause, you
cool
know,
in one of these places.
She goes, I was going 5 miles an hour. And I was like,
you know what that is?
she goes,
That's the oldest trick in the book. She's like, I want to sell this stuff. I'm gonna sell 1 million gloves.
She was interrogated by the government.
So she was saying
feel
all it
pretty
takes is one car at 5 miles an hour. She goes, he came over and hit me.
Yeah.
And took my finger right off. I was like, damn. And I said, so I was thinking, wait a second, but if a car hit your finger and took it off, the glove stops that? This glove is not, this isn't like medieval times. I'm not with a jousting thing.
Yeah,
this isn't armor.
That plastic is pretty strong.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. They're making some good stuff. I mean,
So,
there's good leather.
I was scared into it. I was like, $30 gloves? Sure, I'll pay $30 rather than my hand.
Did you have
good call.
your accident? Was it intent? Your accidents? Whereas it was pick
Well,
the
like
most.
why I left?
Yeah, why did
No,
you?
I didn't
stop?
leave as a result of accidents.
What kind of
Just
accident? Like, tell me what an
possibility of
accident is
an
like.
accident. He was worried about it happening.
The mildest was so I used to ride in the winter in Connecticut, literally, because I didn't have a car. So once there was a bit of ice on the road, and I sort of skidded into the back of a car. It was like I was braking.
It's the
This on a
funniest kind
motorcycle
of
or-
I
accident.
only hit him going a little. It was enough to crack the glass on the front, and he just left. Like it was a very mild
Is
accident.
this the Ducati or the Vespa?
This was a Kawasaki. Shut up! I never owned a
the
Vespa.
Ducati.
This was a Kawasaki. It was my first bike.
You have a Ducati?
He had
No,
the
my
Ducati
brother
too.
had a Ducati. I used it for a year.
Your brother had.
I
a
didn't.
Ducati.
I owned a Kawasaki and a Harley Davidson and a Yamaha. So that was the first. Second time was I was like stopped near a highway and I went to like I was waiting for traffic and then I was gonna turn right and oil had pooled. So like as I went, it just slipped out from under me and I went down.
There's no way.
That wasn't that bad. The worst though was my first bike at night driving through campus. I like saw a bunch of stuff happening on the side and I looked. And when I looked back, the person in front of me had like slammed on their brakes. So I slammed on my brakes, which if you don't have anti-lock brakes, can flip your bike over. So I flipped my bike and was thrown off the bike and I slid. But it had been raining a little bit, so there wasn't as much friction. I was wearing leather and everything. So the only injury I had was like I came to a stop, I got up, I went to my bike, and I was so embarrassed because there were so many people around that like I went to pick up my bike and I hurt my back from like picking up my bike too fast. You have to be careful. You have to lift with the legs, you know, because it's 350 pounds.
And this is pre
that was the worst
John
accident.
Ida days too. So these days, John could be like,
You can,
No, actually, I
delap.
carry it sometimes to save gas. No,
The bike rides him. Hey,
they're cool though, man. If you haven't considered it, consider it.
I've ridden mopeds. No. I haven't ridden mopeds. Why he oughta? I've ridden a Vespa a couple times. The first time was in Rome, where it's the
That's
law.
cool. That's cool. You have to.
You have to, or they judge you. They judge you while drinking espresso and smoking every cigarette in the cleanest shirt. But I was there and we rented mopeds for like $9. No, we rented scooters for $9, sorry. And there were a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls. This girl Lisa was on the back of mine, and I was like, "Hey Lisa, oh ciao," or what is it, Eddie? Is it like whatever?
Hey, ciao.
Ciao. Yeah. So I was riding, trying to get out of the parking lot. And I just
your first time you had a passenger on the back?
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, this is just like a bike.
It's way harder with a passenger on the back.
Thank you for saying that. So I'm riding and I go out of I've ridden it probably 35 feet before hitting a car.
I have never heard this before.
And the side of my bike just kind of goes, and Lisa goes, could you hold on a second? I'm getting in the car with you guys. And Lisa gets the fuck off the back of the bike, right? She goes, and I'm like, all right, it's just us boys. And all the other girls are like, I am out in this super obviously frat driven, like the boys drive the girls, because it's like 2004 and everyone sucks. Anyway, so Robbie's in front of me and we're riding to Tarek's house. Tarek's an Italian guy. He's like, oh, it's fine, go down the Ardeatina, and you're like driving. And we're going out of town because he lives about 10 minutes out of town. And there's a part of the road that goes right and then left. And I'm riding and I'm like, I am so good at this.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. And obviously Robbie's thought, I'm gonna speed it up a little too. God, I'm spinning right now. Anyway, so he starts and I'm watching Robbie ahead of me bank right and about to bank left. And I'm like, Robbie's not gonna make that turn. And he doesn't. And I see Robbie, his Vespa hit the curb and him go over it. And I'm like, idiot.
That's weird.
And then I'm riding and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm not gonna make this turn either.
It's like lemmings.
And I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have laughed at Robbie. And I'm like, but I'm not hitting that fucking curb because Robbie looks like he's in a lot of pain. I think that's blood. This all happens in like 2 seconds. And so I slam on my brakes and I turn to the side and I'm like, oh, I've heard the term drop the bike before.
Yeah.
So in that, I'm like, I try to drop the bike. We're not going fast enough. We are going fast enough for me to slide a little bit. And I feel like my leg getting kneed.
Oh.
And I'm
road
like,
rash.
fuck, what's happening? So I'm trying to go to the side and I just feel my arm go clunk and my left shoulder goes out of the socket.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is a situation I did not expect myself to be in. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Well, first I gotta get up out the road because everyone's driving like a fucking Italian.
They do.
No offense.
They tend to.
I'm good.
But it's insane. And so as I get up, it pops right back in my shoulder.
Oh, that's good.
And then we leave, but Lisa was like, oh my God, I could have killed Lisa.
So did she see you go down?
No, we didn't tell her.
Oh, no, you didn't
Tell anybody. Like, you good? I'm good. We're good.
Like
okay.
A Final
Little blood,
Destination
little blood,
situation.
Just pull the shorts down a little bit. We were fine.
You wearing a helmet?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank God. So that happens, and I'm like, crap. The little button on the end of this story is like later that night, later in that stay, I get sick, and I like need to go to the pharmacy to go get stuff.
No.
So I'm like, fuck, I gotta get back on this goddamn scooter. And on my way back from there, I fall again.
It's a good thing you didn't get a motorcycle.
Just because at this point your body is probably like, you're probably afraid. It's like getting, people get in car accidents and then for like, if it's severe enough, months later, even a year later, people are they're a little flinchy when they're driving. They're like, oh shit, because they remember it, their body remembers what happened. That could have been what happened immediately to you. Now you're tight.
Oh, absolutely. You gotta relax into it. Later, I did another trip and we rented Vespas on a very like no one's around situation.
Oh, and also I'm sorry. What kind of alcohol was involved in this?
Sambuca. A little bit of sambuca.
I don't remember, but like we had been drinking that day, but
limoncello.
The blood alcohol content is mandatory in Rome.
Also part of the law, apparently.
Yeah. Okay, that was fun.
It sounded like there was another.
Hey, we should go film you on the scooter.
No, that was it.
Let's see how you do.
That would be amazing. I'm just having flashbacks to like that. But
wait, so no road rash?
No, I was
none
going.
From you,
I was
from your 3 or 4 or 5.
No, I was
6?
wearing full.
Oh, every
stuff.
time.
Leather and jeans, but it was wet.
Robbie was bleeding. I was like scrapes and stuff, but nothing too bad.
The normal kind of scrapes you get if you're riding like a bicycle. All of us have fallen as a kid.
They probably weren't going super
Everyone
fast.
at 12 years old has fallen off the damn bike and be like, and you have like your scrape, but not like road rash. Because I've heard about the way that hospitals or ERs get rid of that.
Yeah.
One more
Scrub it off.
horrible story. Follow medical disaster, whatever I follow.
What is wrong with you?
But
That's a
I have a friend
disorder.
I love that stuff. It's one of those things where if I was smart enough, I could have easily been a surgeon. You know, people say you have to be like not queasy. I can do that shit. But the problem is I'm not smart. So I couldn't do that shit.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
I could be in the ER all day watching people get trucked in with guts open. It's just, I would go, I don't know what to do with it about it now though, because I don't.
Sometimes I just open people's guts.
Oh, this guy came in with a total devastating car accident. And other people are like, and I'll be like, oh man, it's amazing. I can be calm. Hey, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. We'll take care of this. I still know what I'm doing.
Just start cutting. He's totally unfazed, but he just cuts random things.
Yeah, I feel like there's 2 phases of being a good like doctor or surgeon. Is easy tempered, able to see lots of blood and guts and not be affected, and then know what the hell you're doing. Part 2, I don't have.
Yeah. Few doctors do.
I just pictured JR as like the guidance counselor for the people going through the trauma, and they see their guts open. You're like, you know what? If this wasn't you, you'd think this was pretty cool.
Okay.
That's all the time we have.
That's all the time we have. That's all the accidents we have.
Like, we didn't have to make any videos. We didn't, and we had a pretty fun post game.
Yeah, we got the whole glove off.
Wear a helmet. Good night.